This podcast is intended for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
John Nelson, Nellie, this is truly an honor, dude, to finally have you on here. And yeah.
I thought you were just excited to see my back porch.
It's a nice back porch. It's got a cabin feel.
Tiny Canadian cabin feel.
That's all you need.
Moose antlers, wolf skull, deer antlers, Canada bags. We got it all.
Well, you've seen a lot over your time, and I guess this is all you kids. Listen up, because you need to know your roots in this sport, and this guy has experienced more in fishing and in life than we could ever dream to. So really excited to dig into kind of history and storytelling, all of that. But I guess you're not even from Minnesota. You're from California.
No, I am from Minnesota. Originally, I did a little stint in the Navy in San Diego.
That's what it was.
Yeah, and was out in California for a few years there, moved my way back here and went, well, now what should I do? And moved up to our family cabin on Mille Lacs Lake and started actually working for a marine dealership, just doing little things. I knew I wanted to be around the lake, and next thing you know, somebody says, boy, you should charge people to go fishing. You should be a guide. I'm like, okay. Never thought of that.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then customers I had as guides or as guide clients, they said, "Oh, boy, you catch a lot of fish. You should try tournament fishing." Sucker.
The rest is history.
Yep. It all went downhill. No.
Do you remember what year this kind of was? Just for perspective.
88.
Yep.
Yeah. 88, 89. Yeah.
It was when you got serious about it.
Yeah. Part of my history, I haven't had a drink in 37 years.
Wow.
October 12th, 1988. So when I got sober, one of the things they talked about was finding things to do that didn't revolve around alcohol. And I said, well, I really like fishing. And they said, a lot of people drink when they go fishing. And I said, but I don't have to drink because I love fishing. So my counselors and sponsors and stuff were very worried initially. And, through the fishing industry, I have found amazing people who, are in the same situation as myself, that either, quit drinking or change their lifestyle or whatever, and the fishing is the drug.
Absolutely.
The fishing is the thing that I go for. And, I look at people spending, $5, $6, $7, $8 or more on a cocktail at the bar, and I'm like, sheepers, that's 3 packs of plastics,
or 2 packs of plastics.
Two packs of plastics anyway. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, it was 88 that I started getting into the fishing more, and 1990 was my first walleye tournament that I fished, sure. And I think I won the third one I ever fished. So, yeah.
Because, walleye was, as a kid growing up, this state, and you still have, it still is, but it seems like that was what you did.
Right. Yep.
And it's changed since then.
Yep. You guided walleyes, and you tournament fished walleyes, and you fished walleyes with your friends and stuff like that. At that time, I was up at Mille Lacs and was working for Johnson's Portside, and the high school kids and other friends in the area and stuff. We always did a Sunday afternoon bass tournament where we would, pick the lakes up around Aiken or maybe down in Mora, and we'd put 5 lake names in a hat and pull one out, and everybody would drive there and have a 4-hour little bass adventure.
Cool.
And then go back to walleye fishing the rest of the time.
Sure.
So it was, we were just having fun goofing around, and kind of everybody puts $10 in, and you might win $50 or $100 or something like that. So
that's fun. I remember we used to do that. I don't do that anymore, but we used to do that.
Yep.
That's cool. And to be honest, the 80s, I don't think I would have made it out of the 80s without some rehab of some sort, right?
Yeah.
The 80s looked wicked fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
The 80s looked like I could get in some trouble. So, the music, all of that, it was different times.
Yeah. It was good times.
Sounds like great times.
The end of free love. Yeah.
In the 80s, I mean, it's crazy to see just how much the sport has changed, or has it, and equipment. And I guess, like, the equipment,
yeah.
I think back to the equipment that you guys were using.
Yeah.
And, like, the cutting-edge stuff at the time. And looking at where we are now, it's like, I don't know how you guys used to cast more than 40 feet.
The reels that I had the most of for my bass fishing were the Abu Garcia Ambassador 5000s or 4500s maybe. They were a little narrower frame,
Sure.
And then you really stepped up when you got one with a thumb bar rather than that little depression, that little silver bar or puncher on the side there, release on the side. And then I think it was early 90s, something like that. Terry Tuma was working with Ferguson Keller, who was a Daiwa rep, and Ferguson Keller is still the Daiwa rep, but he brought some guys, a couple of guys straight out of Japan to come up walleye fishing with me. And, they said, boy, what can I do for you? What can we do for you? Can we pay you? I'm like, no, this is really cool that I got to work with the rod designers,
Absolutely.
when I'm a 23-year-old kid, and working on walleye rod designs and stuff. I said, but I really like bass fishing. I'd really like one of those Daiwa TDI HI low profiles, one of the first really cool low profile reels. And I remember they used to have the all the pros, all the Rick Cluns and people that were using him, it might not have been Rick Clun, but they had him dressed in these like race car, NASCAR suits, standing next, with a big giant TDI, reel, and, the Daiwa on the sleeves and all that, because it kind of looked, compared to every other round reel that was out there, or even the Lew's, or the Bantams, at that times they were still kind of that teardrop, a little rounded on the back and a little narrower on the front. But I remember that TDI Daiwa, Team Daiwa, being the first real low profile bait caster. It's like, this is so cool. So I got one of those for free, and it was a $250 reel at that time.
Wow.
So they've come a long way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess
as you felt this evening.
Dude, that Zillion was nice.
Yeah, a little different reel there.
Absolutely. Yep. And you get that custom SLP Works handle on there. And you guys are doing that now.
Yep.
But my curiosity is into, like, how did you, so walleye fishing, you're kind of raised doing that.
Yep. Really
freaking good at it. What kind of got the bass book going? Was it those pickup things and kind of like just doing it for fun on the side?
Yeah, it was always fun that way. And then when I moved down to the cities in 2002, 2003, whenever it was, and started working at Thorne Brothers, those guys were all about muskie fishing and bass fishing.
Yeah.
They didn't care about walleye tournaments or anything. And I was kind of ending, the FLW walleye circuit had kind of taken over from the RCL, the Ranger Crestliner Lund series that started that out.
Sure.
And that was kind of coming to an end. I was kind of done with that. Anyway, I wasn't as happy going and walleye tournament fishing. I had a lot bigger smile on my way home after the tournament than I did on the way there, and I kind of went, I don't want to do this. And then Lonnie, our lead rod builder, he said, well, do you want to do a walleye tournament or a bass tournament, on Minnetonka? I'm like, sure. There again, that's about all it took. And I think maybe even in the same year, it might have been the next year, Jeff Allen, our Daiwa rep, Ferguson Keller rep, asked me to sub in. Ryan Otto was out of town, and he asked me to sub in on a Fishers of Men on Green Lake and Chisago, and we walked away with that one, and I went, this is cool.
Yeah.
I like this. Yeah. And it's just...
All right, this is a sneaky one here. Have you guys heard about the little minnow technique? You probably have. You probably heard us talk about it. But what that is you're simply strolling or fishing a slightly smaller minnow than kind of what's on the market. This has really become popular in Japan. And Thorne Brothers recently took on this brand. This is a new brand from Japan. It's called Galapagos Fishing Tackle. And the owner, it's a one-man deal, and he's a guide on Lake Biwa, absolute hammer. And he designed what's called this high roll. So this is a 3.5-inch little bait, and you're going to notice on the forehead of this bait there's a little notch there for your ball head or for your jig head. And what that's designed to do, we've really grown fond of this decoy standard head for that smaller minnow. A, because it's got a light wire hook that doesn't bend out. There's a lot of these smaller minnow heads that hook will actually bend out on you, or the hook's too heavy a wire than you're wanting to do with this kind of dainty presentation. So you'll notice there's a notch in the forehead for your ball head, but there's also this channel right here down the middle to help you rig that ball head perfectly. And what that's going to do is going to position that bait so that it rolls really easy. And then you'll notice there's a notch down the tail, so that tail's going to have a little quiver and kick to it as you're rolling it through the water column. So the mooch minnows become very popular. I'd highly encourage you have some mooch minnows, but when you need to shake and get that roll out of the bait, I think you'll be very fond of this Galapagos High Roll 3.5. They come in a variety of colors. And that decoy ball head really makes a difference in pinning that fish and getting them in the boat. So couple that with the Vocelka Fishing and Custom strolling rod, and you're ready to go scoping, baby. Scope straight or scope home.
But not only that, you can find all the latest and greatest bass fishing tackle at Thorne Brothers, whether it's Japanese or American. Stop into their store or head to their website, thornebrothers.com.
You know, it's kind of funny that I went into bass fishing with medium light spinning rods, and everybody's telling me, "Oh, you got to have bigger, you got to have heavier, you got to have bait casting, you got to have a medium heavy spinning rod," and all of this stuff. And now the finesse, kind of caught up. My walleye background said medium light, light line, finesse-y.
Yeah.
So that's what I've always gravitated towards.
Kind of your style, yeah.
Yeah, and it took me a while, to really grab hold of some of the punch them in the face stuff, football jigs and flipping and that kind of stuff.
Sure. I guess, did you kind of how much crossover was there where you were fishing both walleye and bass tournaments, or was it kind of like you set one down for the other?
Yeah, it was pretty much a demarcation line.
Wow.
Yeah, of I'm done with walleye stuff. Didn't do really much fishing for about a year, and then kind of went, okay, bass is fun. I'm having fun with this. I could do a couple of tournaments, and then it just kind of got out of hand after that.
So what, I guess, burnt you out with the walleye stuff, or what was kind of the main? It stopped being fun. I get that, but how come? That was the first time, when I first signed up for the early years of the PWT and stuff. I really went into it thinking I was going to fish against you. I didn't go into it thinking I'm going to fish against you and your 5 best friends. The group money sharing, information sharing, all that kind of stuff, kind of really got going, or maybe it was there and I just never saw it. But towards the last couple of years I did it, it really got going, and you weren't, not that I paid attention to who was near me or if they saw me catch a fish or anything like that, but they, it just became evident that as a one guy, you weren't going to be able to compete in that anymore. Yeah. And it's very much that way now. It's very much groups of people working together. And I don't see that the same. There's some of it, there's some used to be more
travel partners and information partners, stuff like that in the bass stuff. But I still think I'm fishing against you, or I'm fishing against this person or this person. It's not as much I'm fishing against these 5 guys.
Sure.
Did
you ever get asked to be team
I
up?
did
or-
the last year that I did it. I did it with a buddy of mine and two of his friends, and we did the money split and everything, and it didn't
It's got its own problems.
it didn't sit exactly right, and if you're going to be in a team,
It's a hard
if you're going to
thing
be in a
do.
group or a team like that, honestly, to do it right, you have to do a money split. Otherwise, your friends will forget to tell you something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
So, and in that, after that year of it, or season of it, I kind of went, I think I'd rather do it on my own. And I've kind of
Yeah.
been that way, since on things. I'll check with friends and say, hey, what are you catching? What do you think it's going to take? Not where are you catching them? What are you
Right.
using? When are you there? What's the weather condition that you got your big ones? That kind of stuff. It's what do you, give me a baseline.
Yep.
You think it's going to take 50 pounds to win? Do you think
Right.
it's going to take 150 to win? With the, Champions Tour stuff being a collective of all the fish you catch. So I kind of, there's a few people that I'll talk to and a few people that I'll believe, but I'm not asking them,
Right. You are not.
show
that
me,
guy.
show me your best bait, show me your, and if I don't make a mistake, or if I fish the best I can, if I don't win, okay.
Yeah.
If I suck, okay, I got to figure out what I did wrong next time.
Yeah.
So
Who was like I guess I know, what's your most proudest walleye fishing accomplishment, tournament fishing accomplishment, or tournament that you won? Or
I think the coolest event that I did, I didn't win, or two really cool ones. There used to be a walleye tournament on Mille Lacs called the Wave Whackers tournament, and that was like the quintessential Mille Lacs tournament. And I had a run there where we had like an 11th, 5th, 4th, and 3rd, and just couldn't quite get a win on that. But you look at
consistent.
who the top, my friend group at that time, it looked like In Fisherman threw up. The Walleye Insider vomited in my yard when people would come over. It's like, holy cow, that's so and so, or that's so and so, or oh, I didn't know you knew them. It's like, yeah, we're just barbecuing.
Yeah.
So that was a really cool one. That ended up being about 125, 150 boats. So to do well, against that one.
Yeah.
And then I won one up in Ontario that got me qualified in the year 2000 for one out in Green Bay, the inaugural RCL, Ranger Crestliner Lund tournament. And that ended up being 202 boats. And I was one of two tiller boats in the whole thing, and I ended up in 4th. And that was, it was cool because it was a 4-day event. The whole field fished the first 2 days, then the top 12 fished the 3rd day, and the top 6 fished the last day.
That's cool.
And they put a ESPN camera guy in the boat with you, and you're in your earbud, you're talking with Tommy Sanders, and they're calling you to ask how you're doing and what you're thinking and all that kind of stuff. So that was
super cool.
yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I tell people that was also my biggest mistake in a tournament. It was on the Green Bay and the Fox River, so it's a no call. And on the final day, you're allowed 3 fish, and I had set my tournament limit at 20 inches, nothing under 20 inches. And with about an hour and a half of fishing time left, I had a 18 and a half incher in my hand, and I'd been catching tons and tons of that size fish and under, and somewhere I could probably come up with the VCR tape, the VHS tape of it, where I'm talking to the camera and talking to Tommy Sanders and company, and I said, if I put it in the live well, I can't win. If I don't have a limit, I can't win. And I sat there for a long time, and I finally put it in the live well. And my next fish was 21 inches, and the next one was 22. And there was these 3 guys in a little aluminum boat watching me, and they're like, "You got your 3? You're we didn't want to crowd you." And they're like, what were you throwing? And I threw them a couple of these little Rebel or Storm thin fins that I was throwing in real shallow water. And they came to the weigh-in. They said, I wasn't even idled around the corner yet, and their first fish was 24 and a half. So that was a $280,000 mistake, because my friend Scotty Glorvigan won $300,000 with 11 pounds, and I won 21,000 with a little over 8 pounds.
It's a pretty good constellation prize, but
Oh, yeah.
when you put that blood, sweat, and tears in it,
Yeah.
dude, the no-call tournaments,
Oh,
that would ruin it for me.
It's-
If you had to do that all the time and make
Yep.
those kind of decisions, it's
Yep.
like, does the best guy truly win in that scenario?
Yeah.
Like, in your mind?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It depends if he called or not. Or,
Right. yeah. You got to be,
Oh, that is
You know.
so hard.
like that whole pre-fishing session. I caught enough fish. I stayed in the Fox River, stayed, up within a mile of the dam, and sometimes real close to the De Pere Dam. And so I knew what was in there. I knew what I was capable of. Some of the guys that fished on the bay itself, they were getting bigger fish, but they might only get 2 a day. 1 or 2, 3, 4, 3 fish a day, at best, but some of them were 7, 8, 10 pounds, 11 pounds,
yeah.
So I knew what I was doing there. And like I said, I felt confident I had to stay at 20 inches, but one of those things you go, this is the guarantee, and at that time it was, in hindsight, I just thought of this too. I borrowed $600 from my dad for lodging. I had the $1,500 for the entry fee,
Yep.
and I had gas money,
Yeah.
but I didn't have enough for a week's worth of lodging. So I had to borrow $600 from my dad. Thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, either way, I'm going to make enough where I can pay him back and have some extra money. But, one of those things. I beat myself up for it for a while, but it was, I might have not caught that
Right.
24-incher,
I mean, it's
a
those split-second decisions, right?
Right.
That's the game we
Yeah.
play.
I don't think I caught a 24-incher all week. I think 21s and 22s were kind of on the upper end.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
I guess with that thin fin, were you trolling it or throwing it?
casting.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you're bassing them.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah. And that's, medium light spinning rod, kind of like we were talking when we were out fishing earlier this
Yeah.
afternoon. Medium light spinning rod, 6-pound mono,
Were you jerking it or reeling it?
No, just casting it upstream, bringing it down, bouncing it off some real shallow rocks. And those don't go very deep. They only go
Sure.
about 2.5, 3 feet at the deepest, maybe a hair deeper when you're bringing it downstream. But, there was a seiche coming out of the bay. So the river would drop, and all of a sudden you'd be stuck on the rocks right there. No moving, no turning the trolling motor. The boat is just set on the rocks. And then an hour later, it would raise 1.5 feet, 2 feet, and then you could get up and you could move. And what I figured out, but didn't fully set in my mind, is when the seiche started to come back up, when the river started to rise again, that's when all the fish moved, and that's when you would catch them. When it dropped, they'd sit in their little pocket and, pout. I don't know what they did, but they weren't moving and they weren't easy to catch.
Yeah.
At that time. But as soon as I had one rock that I was looking at, chunk of cement.
Indicator?
Yeah, my indicator. And when that would disappear, I'd just, they said just pretend like you're on camera, which you were, but just talk all day long, and I kept saying, as soon as that rock disappears, it's on again. And then it was bam, 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 bam. And maybe should have waited, maybe not. Still quite an experience.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And for all the low IQ degenerates watching at home, can you educate us on what seiche means? It's a wonderful word.
So if you get a big storm system or a big difference in pressure. You'll see it on lakes like Mille Lacs because it's so big and so round. You'll see it on the Great Lakes a lot, where you get this, either some of it's a little predicated on high winds, but it's probably more the pressure change. It'll pull water to one side of the lake or the other. So one half of the lake is raising and the other half or other portion of the lake is dropping.
Yep.
But the Fox River coming out of Green Bay, right from where the little amusement park and public access is, right at the end of the Fox River, all of that bay out there, there's times where you'd be out in the bay and you can see the tops of all of those little gravel bars and that kind of stuff, and then the next time you can't see the tops of them. So it's bigger lakes. It's the lake basically sloshing back and forth.
So Seish would be a name for lake current more so than river current, or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kind of like a tide.
Yeah. I'd have to. Yeah. Very much like that.
If you will.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
But it's not like tides are kind of moon driven. And things
Sure.
of that nature. Where this is weather driven. It's a
wind.
big differential in pressure, which tends to cause wind.
Sure.
So you might think that it's all having to do with the wind, but it's not necessarily just the wind that does it. It's a lot of high pressure here, a lot of low pressure here, and then
So fronts.
Yeah.
Weather fronts.
Yep.
Could you have it predict, were you good enough with it where you could predict it? I think about a pendulum swinging, right? And could you kind of if you get one with a body of water enough, if you fish Sturgeon Bay enough, those guys who fish there all the time,
I guarantee
have a feel
those.
for that,
I guarantee those guys notice it. And know to look for it, or know this weather pattern's setting up for it.
Yeah.
And out on the lake, you might not notice it very much. If you're in 10, 15 feet of water, you might not notice that the depth has changed a foot or two, but there's it's causing a current, it's causing a movement of water, and it's causing a movement of fish and bait fish and everything else.
Right. Well, it's I could see it with the bow and my line a little bit, but it's hard if you're not used to that. And I think about it's always interesting to me how people hack that, and I guess things to look for if you are wanting to dial things in a little sweeter,
Yeah. It was really, really cool to see in the river situation associated with the lake.
Oh, yeah.
And when I used to go over and salmon fish with my buddy Doug over in Algoma, he had a place right on the river, right on the Anapi River over there, and you could sit and watch the water level just change on the watermarks on the bridge, throughout the day, because that whole system is kind of sloshing back and forth.
Wow. So when that water's high on the other side of the bay than that river, is more current being pulled out? Does it increase that flow at all? You know what I mean?
I think the falling water seems to increase the flow.
Yeah. That would make sense.
But the deeper water allowed the fish to move around more freely.
Sure.
There's a lot of this, myself and Scott Glorvigan, who ended up winning that event, we talked about that afterwards. It's holy cow, when the water was on its way up, boy, did those fish bite. And you could almost, when it was at the bottom level there, you could almost just sit there and not even worry about casting, because the fish would go wherever they went, whatever little depression they went in, they sat there and they didn't want to eat. But as soon as that water got deep enough, it's they started to scurry around for a new spot.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's some Seish.
Yep.
Huh. And that's, I don't know, that's the kind of stuff I'm super fascinated by. And I guess Mille Lacs had moments of, cast this way, and lake currents pulling that way. And but I have a hard time, just probably due to time on the water, predicting it when I get to the lake, right? And thinking through that.
Yeah, wind will definitely set up current changes. I used to see that on Minnetonka all the time.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
you go in here and all of a sudden all the weeds are laid over this way, and yesterday they were laid over.
You probably got a live scope, but I bet you don't have the scoping rod from Vocelka Fishing and Custom, designed to hit those targets right on the noggin on that live scope, whether you're fishing a 3-inch minnow all the way up to a 6-inch minnow, from a 1/16 ounce all the way up to a 1/4 ounce. This is the perfect mid-strolling rod. Visit VocelkaFishing.com. Check it out today. Scope straight or scope home, ladies and gentlemen.
Over the other way, you know, and I didn't key in on that as much when I was fishing Tonka heavier, but I think there's something to be said for the way that lake is moving and which parts of the main lake really turn on or don't turn on, or how the fish relate to things differently, you know, depending on current. And you get maybe a little bit of depth change there, you know, from the currents and you know, from the storms and stuff like that, but not
wake boats.
Yeah, and wake boats, you know. But I think for a smarty pants, you know, you could easily start to, you might outthink yourself, but there's some things, you know. I caught them here, you know, and I used to journal. I used to have a really great memory of, okay, 7 years ago on a day like this, I caught them here, and it was this kind of weather. Okay, you know, and I was good at that. I don't have that memory anymore. But, you know, for people that do or journal or, you know, start to look at the conditions that they're catching fish in certain spots, more so than spots are good, but you can have a great spot, and if the current isn't right, if the condition isn't right, the fish aren't using it.
That is, I think there's a lot more to that than, you know, meets the general eye. And I just wonder, like Tonka, I fished it so many times, and like best example I could think of right now is fishing in Crystal Bay in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
I'll catch some big ones in the evening, and never could catch them there during the day. And I guess to me that's, I don't know, maybe it's evening bite window or not, but I do wonder about, was it current that day or that moment, right? Or was there something else, right, to it?
I always used to use crystal as kind of a judge of what the lake was doing.
Sure. When
I first started fishing it, crystal was off-colored, you know, and then the zebra mussels got popular, and crystal turned into a very clear bay where you could see 8-10 feet down, you know, when it was clear. But if the wind is blowing in from the main lake through Arcola Bridge and Narrows, all of crystal will be clear. You know, if you get a west wind, if you get a north wind, if you get a west wind where all of a sudden it's starting to push through west arm, north arm, Maxwell and pull stuff out of stubs, you get that whole rotation going, and there all of a sudden you're halfway across the bay and you see the color change already. And sometimes you get that westish wind for several days in a row in the summertime, and it's green water all the way out to Arcola.
Yeah.
You know, so I pay attention a lot to that kind of stuff.
That makes perfect sense. And I guess if I was to guess, consistent west winds and a little dirt and crystal probably helps.
It seemed to.
Yeah.
You know,
that'd be my
it's
guess.
not always. Crystal's been funny. That used to, for many, many years, that was just a slam dunk. You know, it's like, oh, we need one more big fish. We got 5 spots in there. We're going to go hit those 5 and try and get, you know, a big fish. We started a lot of tournaments off the golf course, you know. But Tonka in general has changed, and people are starting.
Bitch.
Yeah, she's not happy.
She's not a happy woman.
Yeah. So there's some of that. I do have a lot of dirty water stuff that I see the right wind and I'm just like, here we go. You know, shallower water more so than the deeper water.
And is that wind clean water being pushed in, or is that
not necessarily
just the right direction?
Yeah, just the right direction. It's hitting those spots, hitting those rock piles or weed edges or whatever, to where it's pushing against the face of them, and then the fish seem to line up on the face side, waiting for something to get pushed into it or swim by.
That makes perfect sense. I guess it's weird, that crystal stuff. It's like, it seems to go down there, but I couldn't tell you when.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of stuff's been won out of crystal, like last half hour of the tournament. It seems like, I know Dane and PJ, when they won the Blackfish, I know they made 2 calls in crystal at the end of the day, and I think the Blackfish has been, So I think it's just Tonka, when you get a lake that's like gets that much pressure and there's that much going on, there's something else that we don't, like most people don't pay attention to going on. And even if you did pay attention, it's not obvious.
Yeah.
It's not blatantly obvious, but the current thing and all the pinch points in the lake, and like, I mean, that creates the ultimate, like,
staging area,
or
it draws the fish into this area because of the wind or because of the current. And a lot of that I learned from fishing Mille Lacs, walleye fishing from Mille Lacs. A lot of guiding is or used to be a lot of guiding was slip-bobber fishing. So you're always trying to you're crossing your fingers you get the best wind you can without being so big that your customers throw up. Trying to watch a little bobber moving up and down. And
what's the windiest you'd be throwing that bobber? Like 3-4 footers?
Oh yeah.
Holy smokes.
You hear people say, "Oh, Mille Lacs 6 footers." It's probably not very many days in the history of Mille Lacs that there was actual 6 footers on any.
You get a rogue weird one. Maybe.
Yeah, and but there's times in the shallow water where you swear you can see the bottom as the wave goes by, or your bobber goes and lays flat, and the next wave comes by and the bobber stays under and is moving. It's like, okay, but the fish, they want to be on that leading edge, on the face side of the structure
side. Yeah. Have you found bass to be similar with that current that way?
Yeah, especially river.
Rivers, but lakes, it seems like
if there's
it depends on how the spot lays out.
Yep.
If you've got a sharp edge and the current's hitting it, they'll be on the face of that. But on the gradual, like if you got a west wind, let's say, hard west wind, the west side of the reef, it doesn't seem like I catch them on the west side of the reef. I catch them on the east side of the reef. But that undertow is hitting it on the face. So the cool thing I figured out on Mille Lacs is that inside, or the shoreline side of those reefs, there's a lip, a hard one. And it was one day I was sitting there and casting up, and then remember at 45 downwind, and it was like a light bulb. It was like, just like if you're fishing a wing dam or something, and it was like, and it's tough to duplicate it. And then I saw Easton follow a bubble trail when I was with him, and like got on a bubble trail scene. It was a south wind running up the lake, and I'm like, he caught another 5-6 pounder. I'm like, was that on a boulder or anything? He's like,
no, just a current seam in the lake, or a bubble trail, or whatever.
Picked it up in like an hour of us being there. I'm like, who are you? But anyway.
Bassmaster champion.
No, just the first classic champ from Minnesota. No big deal.
Nothing to see here.
But I think that's so when you're looking at that current, your slip bobber, and they're on that facing side, what kind of stuff were you looking for targeting with that? Because Mille Lacs can be daunting, man. There's structure everywhere.
There's definitely good spots and spots that aren't so good. I mean, you want fairly deep water close to it, and then kind of a terrace or a tier system. And the walleyes don't. Everybody said, oh yeah, they don't like bright sun. Well, we made, my friends and I made pretty good money over the years sight fishing walleyes on dead flat comb days in, less than 6 feet of water.
I believe that.
And saying, don't cast at that one, don't cast at that one. And That's your over 26 or your over 28 or whatever it was. But on windy days, they kind of walk up that little stair step or terrace, and if I can have something, even bass fishing, if I can have river fishing, if I can have something that comes up and has a little flat, and then
that's money.
Then that riprap or wing dam or whatever, if you can get them in that flat out in front of it, then things seem to be really good.
I agree, and I wonder with that terrace deal if there's slack spots, kind of like there will, and that maybe gives them all the comfort they need and all the ingredients.
Yeah.
Interesting.
With current, whether it's wind driven or whether and I'm not a scientist. I'm not an aqua science major, but
that's good.
When you've got that,
you've
got that, I did not go to college.
You wouldn't like me as much.
Yeah, I wouldn't even talk to you. No, you've got that current hitting, and you see the physical result of it at the top of the wing dam or at the edge of the riprap
where it hits,
or at the rock pile or whatever. But at the bottom, there's a little soft spot, or right up against the structure a lot of times. Down in La Crosse this year, I had the camera guy was in the boat with me, and I'm 6 feet from that piece of riprap there, and I just dropped the bait in, and I was just starting to work it down, and I see this fish come up, set the hook, and I caught 3, really quick back to back, and I watched that one. It couldn't have been 6 inches off the structure, but it was a couple of feet down at the bottom of it. It was hiding up against there for a little bit of a current break, a little bit of a soft spot.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. There's
I love that shit.
And then I saw other people fishing kind of the same structures that I was, and they were fishing out a little further. Some of them caught a few fish, but to me it was as tight as you could get to that riprap.
With the rising water, if there was a tight high something nearby, that seemed to be where they wanted to be.
Yep.
Where I ended up catching them was actually more of a closing kind of dam, and I had to sit up and throw 45 down and sweep across that. Was the only way I could get them to bite that day. But it's amazing on a river how much even a foot of boat control or it's just all those things matter so much. And I think they actually might in a lake, and I just don't think we pay attention to it the same way. Like the direction you're casting, the all of that stuff. And I think between you and me, I think Live Scope's made us even worse at that.
You're only looking for the blobs.
Well, dude, Dana and I, we were all about angle boat positioning everywhere we went, and we had a run in 2019, kind of like similar to your walleye run, where it was just like ting, 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 ting. And then like, I just don't think I'm not as attentive with that, because I just scope the thing and there they are, cast at them. Oh, they didn't bite. Move on. Well, maybe I was doing it wrong.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I fish, with I'll go through with a Senko, and that'll tell you an unweighted Senko. All of a sudden it's like, well, I casted it there, but I'm retrieving it over here. That wind is pushing that current some way, and you saw that a lot slip bobber fishing too. You cast it out, it's like, how does the bobber move upwind? That's just the way that piece of structure is getting hit by the current, and it swirls around, and it's working its way upwind. It's a weird, looking for a color change, and then just kind of feed it a little line to keep it right where the color change is, so
if you think about how they eat their food, you're presenting that Senko is giving them the food the way they want to eat it. And that's, I think, why and not a lot of people are throwing that thing on a river and just that current, use the current. Like, I was so intimidated by rivers until you learn to let the current work for you
Right.
instead of working for the current. Once
Yep.
you figure out how to let the current do the work for you, I think rivers are much easier than a lake to pattern and kind of dial it in.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of that where all of a sudden you go, well, this is what it's taking. This is the depth, this is the current speed, and now you can look at it and go, I'm going to catch them here, 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 here.
That's the most fun part
and
about it.
I'm not even going to worry about this over here because they aren't going to bite there until something changes.
Right. So getting back a little bit to the thunderstick thing, like all I knew walleye fishing was like as a kid or was trolling, jigging a minnow and a bobber, right?
Right.
And to hear something like that, it's like walleye fishing now is super casting, scoping heavy, but was that common back then?
Not really. We always, before like rattle and shad wraps came out, just the standard number 5 or number 7 shad wrap, we'd post up on a rock pile with a lot of wind blowing over it, and you huck that thing up into the wind as far as you can get it to go.
40 feet.
Yeah. And and those little number 5s, they don't cast very well at all. But again, 6-pound mono, and you're banging it across the top of the rocks, and as soon as it breaks loose, boom, there's your fish. And we would, there was a lot of us that would just, have fun. We'd go out, guide trip ended, people maybe got sick or whatever, and we're like, well, let's go back out and catch a bunch. And throwing the crankbaits, for that. And now, Vision 110s and Jackal re-ranges, jerk baits, all that kind of stuff. Man, do you catch walleyes on that in, as well as bass,
I can't believe how well glide baits catch them walleyes.
Yeah.
Big ones.
Yep.
I've never seen it. Like, I think they're maybe better for walleyes than bass.
Yep.
Yeah, but,
Matt Thompson and Joe Carlson, when they used to fish some walleye tournaments on Mille Lacs, one of their favorite things was a shallow water spot, but they would throw 6-inch phantoms
cool.
on musky gear.
Oh my gosh.
And,
But it worked.
now you can go, oh, it's glide baits, but those guys had giant fish.
Oh, I bet.
It was just stupid.
Well, it's amazing bass fishing. Like, you don't maybe catch as many walleyes as a walleye guy, but you catch big ones.
Yep.
Because I think the big ones act like they're a big. Let's take a 27-inch walleye and an 18-inch walleye.
Yeah.
I think those two fish have very different demeanors than, say, a 5-pound bass and a 2.5-pound bass.
Yep.
Would you agree?
Yeah, walleyes are very predatory.
Yeah.
You catch them other than top water, you can catch them doing virtually anything, whether it's doing a jerk bait or a crankbait or a glide bait or, musky fishermen catch them on spinner baits, or bucktails, all the time. You get these big fish because they're predatory. I caught one, was down on the Mississippi last spring, catch like a 21-incher. I'm like, okay, I'm hungry. This is going to be my one fish that I keep. Fillet it. It's a 10.5-inch shad in the belly.
Big gizzard.
Almost half the length
Of the fish. Oh my gosh.
And it still ate my shad wrap.
And it still had room for more.
Yeah. It was like, I'm getting more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It, friends of mine that go and fish the downtown St. Paul and Red Wing area, Pool 3, that kind of stuff. They'll go down full moons in the evening and they're throwing 6-inch paddle tails on big jigs. What, you might be throwing for bass.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the walleyes are just inhaling it.
Chewing it.
Yeah.
Well,
if walleyes jumped, everybody would fish for them.
Yeah. Well, I remember that wit shad reel.
Or if they didn't die in the live well.
I know. They're fickle.
Yep.
I remember that spring sale. We were doing the spring sale at Thorne Brothers, and that there's a walleye fisherman. He came in, bought a pack of the wit shad reels from YG Labo.
Yep.
And I remember that's a deep 5-inch paddle tail, 4-inch paddle tail or so. And I remember he came back in, so I know them walleyes eat paddle tails, and I'm just curious. I think the way you look at current is just super cool. And I guess what are some parallels you found with the river like looking at a river and current, I think walleye guys do look at some of that current a little different than a bass guy would. I guess, is there any sneaky little things you've learned with that or parallels? Is it more than just a wing dam?
Yeah,
Obviously?
I mean, there's mid-river stuff, those little striations. If you're watching your side imaging, it looks like little lines going across.
Whoop-de-doos.
Yeah.
The river boys call
Yep.
whoop-de-doos.
Yep. Where you get that 2 foot of depth change. You get a hump, and on the backside, boom. It's 10 feet or 2 feet down. On the backside of it. Finding the right combination of those. Or going along with your side imaging, you look along there, and all of a sudden, out to the right or left, you see 5 or 6 marks right on the leading edge of that. And same thing, it's given a current break.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those fish are posted up on there, and they're most aggressive. And when they're just on the backside, you might still catch them, but they're not as aggressive.
Sure. How deep? I mean, are you typically?
It might be
Seems like deeper.
It might be 6-7 feet. It might be 15 feet.
Sure.
Sure. It totally depends on the where the fish are at.
Yeah. That's one thing I don't know if I've really gotten on a pattern of, is smallmouth deeper than like 10 feet on a river. And I'm wondering if it exists, if that can be found.
It's got to be there.
It's got to be.
It's just, there's too much food down there. There's too much of the right types of things for them. Now, maybe they're not like up, Canadian Shield Lakes at 25, 30
Right.
feet of water.
Right. St. Croix, I guess, would be an example. Probably an example where I caught them deeper than 12 in a few places.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, I
And
guess that doesn't
and
count.
that's definitely bait dependent or shad dependent. All of a sudden that school of shad's not at the surface. They're 20 feet down, and they bump into that structure. They bump into that, and everybody's, all the smallmouth are following them. All the white bass are following them. The walleyes are following them, and all of a sudden they go bump into a little point or a little flat or something like that. And when everybody meets, it's on.
Yeah. You ever learn anything about shad migration, or like figure any? That's I've been curious about it. We don't have those up here, so we don't get to play with them much.
Yeah, I would say the closest, and somebody would probably say, "Oh, you can work on it on the Mississippi," but I think the St. Croix, Lake St. Croix from Hastings, or not Hastings, Prescott, up to Stillwater, that's you could spend a lot of time and learn a lot of things, I think, on shad migration and what they do at certain times of the year.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think that is the most, I guess, that's the only really good. I mean, I haven't scoped Pepin much, but that's like the current wasn't strong enough on the St. Croix to the point where you could actually live scope and do that if you wanted to. But
and it, those fish, there's guys, getting fish 25, 30 or more down.
Right.
And it's not a problem for the fish to exist at that depth. They're made to figure out, how to adapt to their environment.
Right.
They're not thinkers.
No, they're feelers.
Yeah, they're just like, I got to do this to survive
instinct.
today. Yeah.
Yeah.
We caught we had a couple of winters on Mille Lacs where we would catch smallmouth through the ice consistently, and we had a couple spots on the north end, coming out of the sand stuff, and it would just be at the base of that kind of first break coming up and starting to turn into harder sand in 20, 25 feet of water, 22 feet of water, and a little bit of gravel and rubble down there. And you'd catch some there, and then down by Hennepin Island we always called it the Tullaby hole, the 45-foot hole that's down there. But you could get them in that mid 30-foot range down there.
Oh, yeah.
You just be sitting there with your Vexilar and watching. It's like, what are these fish that are not biting? And then you'd catch one, and it's a big smallmouth. So their wintering habits, will tell you that they'll go wherever they have to.
Absolutely. And I think at wintering smallmouth is like, I don't know, that late fall smallmouth is one of my favorites to target. I don't know if it's good for them to do it, but it's weird because the last couple falls, it stayed warm into kind of December, and it was the first time I really got to experience that true winter window in open water. And it's amazing how they switch from eating to like not.
Yeah.
And it seems like you really have to, they almost switch to bugs, I think, at some point.
Yeah. I don't, we'd be using walleye spoons or jigging spoons and a chunk of fathead on there or whatever, and they wouldn't smash it. They'd just come and lip it, and they didn't jump very well either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did it one.
I should have drilled another hole over here so they could jump and feel good about themselves. Right. Yeah.
Or spear hole. I bet spear hole would be good. More work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd give them some room to.
Yep.
Nice distance.
Yeah. Good on you. Good on you, buddy.
I remember we were fishing them in the winter one time, and I thought I could catch them on a little blade bait jigging spoon. The best freaking thing we could throw was a little crappie jig and larva.
Yep.
It smoked everything else. But I think one of the coolest things that just I've heard you talk about is just how intimate you are with hard baits and how they run and like tweaking them and all of that. And I'm just fascinated by that. I guess, did that start in the shad wrap and those kind of days?
Yeah.
I feel like those you guys were
shad wraps
really good at tweaking baits back then because you had to, right?
Reef runner. It was like the very first iteration or the current iteration of reef runner that's out there now. The very first one of those that I found, I used to troll the big deep thunder sticks, and I had pretty good success. But I was out in South Dakota for a tournament, and I'm going along, and I see this bait go by, and I'm like, oh, what was that? And I turn around, go grab it, and it was the first ever reef runner that I had ever seen. I think a guy named Mark Broomba out of Ohio. I think he might have had some prototypes or been one of the very first ones using them. I ended up implementing that bait into my selection just because it ran different, but you had to tune them. You had to putz with them. Rapala tank tests everything. Everything runs virtually straight right out of, other than the little scatters, which are meant to do that. But, a shad wrap or a regular Rapala or husky jerk, it's nice and straight. Reef runners, half of them you bought would do a circle, and so you had to play with them, but you didn't want to make them exactly perfect because part of the cool thing is they'd
hunt out a little
have a little seizure and, yip a little bit and move a few feet off to the side and kind of try and round out, and then they'd come back into their
get some bites into
their place. And two, figuring out that deflecting the bait off the bottom or off the structure, that's a triggering mechanism. Or like with the, I love it's no secret, I love the storm magworts.
Yes, you do.
They're, how they, running them through the tips of the weeds, and you feel that weed on there and give it that rip. It's that acceleration and stop, and the bait turns around in their face when you're trying to get your slack back. And so a lot of times, probably half the time it's right after you rip it and you're going back for it that there's a fish waiting there. And it's very often bill first and deepest in the mouth.
Oh, that's so cool when they eat it that way.
Yeah, that tweaking or deflecting or getting something to work differently.
Yeah.
That's a cool way to do it,
Absolutely.
Some people want, a lot of people want things to run perfectly. If whatever kind of fish it is, if it's just swimming by at 3 miles an hour, they might not go and get it. But their lizard brain, when it stops, when it jerks, when it does a little twitch and anything like that, then their little lizard brain takes over and says, I'm going to eat you. Yeah, I can't stop myself.
Yeah, no, don't have a choice.
Yeah.
What? So that magwort, wigglewort, there was a period of time where that thing won some shit.
Oh yeah.
walk me through the discovery phase of that bait and like that whole, because I mean we've seen moments that, you know, Jim Moyna with a football jig, for example, you know, and it's like, holy smokes,
Yeah.
I got the magic bullet kind of thing, right?
Yep.
It's that feeling. We've all had that feeling.
Yeah.
It's a good feeling.
Yep.
Walk me through the discovery of that.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was, you know,
You remember the first one handed to you, or how you first got introduced?
I probably was well, likely was due to Dean and Ted Capra, because that was a bait I.
All right, y'all. I just got back from Thorne Brothers, and I probably found me one of the sneakiest little killers that I've ever seen in my life. This is the Witch Flat Reel from YG Labo. This is a bait from Japan that you've probably never seen before, and I'll give you a little close-up of this bait here. It's absolutely perfect. Beautiful. So this is a hand-poured minnow from Japan. It's going to have that really lifelike, soft, hand-poured feel to it, much like a robo-worm. And what you're seeing over in Japan, and this is going to start taking hold here more, is as those fish get more pressured, they start to hug the bottom more. So not only is this minnow going to be perfect, this Witch Flat Reel, for a drop shot, you know, nose hooked on a drop shot or weightless with a nail weight, but where I really think it's going to be key is this new technique we call bottom strolling. Okay, so Zappu makes a 0-inch wacky plus head. You'll see that's a nice hook with a weight halfway down. So this looks very much like a perch, and what do perch do? They typically hang near the bottom. So if you picture this on the bottom, you're going to be able to stroll this flat little minnow bait back and forth like a perch scurrying on the bottom. I mean, I know you're going to catch them nose hooking this thing on a drop shot, but I guess a sneaky little technique, if you haven't played with it yet, bottom strolling. It's going to be the next thing coming here as we see more pressure with forward-facing sonar. So there's only really one head designed for this, and you can really bottom stroll any little bait you want with this Zappu head. But that's a 0-inch wacky plus. It comes in a 1/16 through an 1/8 of an ounce, and you're able to bottom stroll, you know, any soft plastic you want. And so yeah, check out the Witch Flat Reel from YG Labo. You can find it at Thorne Brothers, along with that Zappu 0-inch wacky plus, or your drop shot hooks, whatever you might need.
But not only that, you can find all the latest and greatest bass fishing tackle at Thorne Brothers, whether it's Japanese or American. Stop into their store or head to their website, thornebrothers.com.
Know that they used to throw and rip through the weeds, and I'm like, oh, okay. You know, I like crankbaits. I'm going to figure this out. You know, everybody else is hung up on a DT16, but, you know, a DT16 in weeds doesn't do very well.
No, it doesn't.
No. But the magworts, you know, depending on your line diameter, you can get it to go maybe 12 feet on a cast, or you can keep it up in the top 6, 7, 8 feet, you know, depending on your leader diameter and line diameter, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
You know, and it's just it's one of those things. Play and play and play, you know, because you can throw. Well, I've had a lot of people, oh, take me out, show me the crankbait thing. It's not quite the right time, you know, or this isn't the right situation, or, you know, that stuff. So you can play with the best crankbaits in the world and not have them at the right time in the right place, the right situation, you know.
Yeah.
But figuring stuff out that, oh, it has to deflect off a weed, that stop and go, you know, if you just take a regular magwort, you know, and pull it fast in the water, it's got a wander to it. But as soon as you're off the throttle, as soon as you give it any slack at all, it does a 180 and is rising to the surface, you know, really quickly. Yeah. You know, so it's different, you know, Jay Carlson, you know, he would buy a whole bunch of DT16s and play with them and then weight them, you know, take the little suspend dots and suspend strips and stuff so that they would act a certain way. You know, wants them to be able to hit the bottom, stop, and not rise.
Yes.
In some
turn around.
in some instances,
Right.
In some instances, you want a little rise to it. You know,
And I guess I have an ideal crankbait condition, right? To me, it's clouds and wind.
Yeah.
Is that you found
yeah,
similar?
it might not even need clouds. Wind is a big, down in Iowa last year. That was pretty sunny in the afternoon. When I lit them up on the
magwort,
magwort, but it was, that wind again was pushing out of this cup up onto a little pile of weeds that was just off of a point. So it's again they're sitting there waiting for something to come by, and I'm sure just by the way that those fish ate that and how many of them. Does it look like I shot a deer in the front of the boat because they ate it so deep.
That's so cool.
But I'm sure they were following it. They were following it, and when I'd hit the top of that little, there was a little bit of coontail and a little bit of pondweed there, and hit the top of that and rip it. It was immediate. As soon as it stopped, rip it forward, go to take up the slack, and they'd be there.
Oh my God.
So I know that they're, at least in my mind, I think I know they were following it. It shot forward, turned around, and they couldn't help themselves. They had to,
no choice.
They had to eat it. Because I went through that spot a couple days before that. I caught 2 big fish on a swim jig. My brother caught a really big one, probably a 6+ on a craw tube in that same spot. So I got there. I pull out the swim jig, 30 casts later, I haven't touched a fish. I pull out the craw tube, another 20 casts, I haven't touched a fish. Throw a Ned rig. I caught one little dinky one, and I was just about ready to leave, but I'd been using that crankbait as a search tool.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, maybe they just moved. I'll try a couple casts with this, and about the third cast, it just fired up.
Folded you over.
Yeah, and away it went.
That was like... You must have been pert near every cast in them, because what place were you in going into the half?
45th,
wow.
50th, something like that. Yeah, I landed 3 fish in the first half. I lost.
You got second place in that event.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I think it was.
You
I think it was 40.
Absolutely busted them.
47th or something like that. But yeah,
that
I think
had to
it
be
was
the best half of anybody.
That year,
of that tournament.
Yeah.
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 That's
was
cool.
80 pounds.
They were nice ones too, I think.
Yeah, there was, I lost a few, missed a few,
Well, was your app working during that? Because mine...
No.
I kept checking. I'm like, we're not catching them that good. What place are we in?
Yeah.
And they were like, well, it's not working, but you're still in first. I'm like...
Yeah.
I guess we'll keep doing what we're doing.
Well, that was the first event. That was the first Champions event that I had fished. And they said, hey, if you get on a good bite, call in.
Yeah.
And Jerry Hansen, the boat marshal that I had, he's like, hey, do you think we should call in? I said, give him a call and just let him know.
Yeah.
Because I think I had 15 that I had caught at that point. And then by the time they got there, it was on 20 or 21 or something like that, and ended with 29. They had to be two or better.
That's right. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that, actually.
Yeah. But, and Adam Bart, says, you're the only guy who's ever called in and said, hey, I'm on a really good bite. Come on over. So, kind of funny.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, you told me to. You told me to, drill sergeant.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, I think the app was still updating when I was back in, because it ended up that Jerry double entered a couple of fish because he was trying to get the app to work and I'm still hauling fish in.
Yeah.
Over the edge there. So he got a little confused. So there was 2 fish that didn't count, just got double entered. They wouldn't have made a difference. I still would have got second, but whatever. It was a fun day.
That was a cool introduction to John Nelson. So yeah.
Look at the walleye guy. Look at the guy in the walleye boat.
No, I was warned. Actually, I was warned about you.
Oh really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Paul Newman warned me about you.
Okay.
He's like, look out for that guy.
Don't turn your back on them.
No, well, it's just I think we were talking about the new rookies, and
Yeah.
he said Nellie is far from a rookie. He's, in fact, a seasoned vet. And I was like, that'll be cool. And then you busted him. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Love seeing that.
Rookie for that tour, certainly have been, won a couple of Denny's Mondays, a few of the Wednesday tournaments there, and just stuff around the North Metro here, So, yeah, and with all the walleye fishing, how to, not exactly a rookie of, gee, how do you fish a tournament, or how do you brain your way through tough fishing circumstances or whatever.
Yeah. What's the main thing you've learned with that? Like tough circumstances, like, pushing through that. And I guess like there's parallels to walleye, bass, just tournament fishing in general.
Just any fishing in general. I've learned, I don't know, it's still to be proven whether I've learned or not, but if I'm uncomfortable at how fishing's going, my brain's working that much harder, and I'm open to new things. If I'm disappointed that my first, what's the saying in boxing? Everybody has a great plan till you get punched in the nose.
Yeah.
If my first plan is a punch in the nose, how do you get past that? How do you switch to something? And Iowa was a great example of the punch in the nose. It's like, okay, I thought I had something going in that half of the lake, and it didn't. But,
you try to turn that punch into lemonade somehow. Right?
Yeah. It's like, okay, why didn't that work? Why is this working? And start thinking rather than, this is where I caught him yesterday. This is what I was doing. You get tunnel vision. I think that's probably the hardest.
So easy to do.
Hardest thing, time management and avoiding tunnel vision, and I've not always done it well, both in the Champions Tour and other things.
I think Champions Tour is the hardest one to do it.
Yep.
It seems like it's one or the other for me. I'm either committing too hard to something, or I'm not committing to something enough. It seems like, and it seems like I just can't. It's never all aligned for me where, but that Champions Tour is, it's like whitewater rafting. Maybe it doesn't feel that way to you, but it feels like 4 hours of whitewater rafting for me. Yeah. Then you get a lunch break, and then you get to go whitewater rafting for 4 more hours.
You got to paddle hard again.
Yep. Oh, man, because I've never more tired. Have you noticed, are you more tired after any of you fish besides Champs Tour?
Yeah. I mean, it's any time that I'm, if I'm vested in that tournament, if it's a Tuesday night, Wednesday night, whatever, you might win $100, something like that. I'm just going to go have fun with whoever I'm fishing. Yeah, I want to win, but, I'm not maybe overanalyzing or analyzing as much as I am when it's like, okay, I've got two different halves, two different parts of a body of water, maybe two bodies of water.
Yeah.
Lahamadu. You got Carlos and Darling, and then you go in the other half, and you got Lahamadu and whatever those lakes are down there.
Maybe that's why I suck at that lake. There's too much shit to do.
Yeah.
Probably I think that's probably totally my issue out there, but
but yeah, it's just if I'm like pre-fishing, if I'm uncomfortable about stuff, I think I'm fishing better. I think I'm thinking better rather than, well, this is going to work, and I've fallen into that. St. Croix last year, I had just a fantastic craw tube bite. Flipping shoreline, flipping trees underwater, down timber, stuff like that. Just an amazing bite. I mean, I was sure that I was going to get 40 fish a day, 50 fish a day.
Yeah.
It's like, no problem. Doesn't matter which half they divided in. I've got them going north, south, east, west.
Mm-hmm.
We picked up like 3 inches of rain, and it came up over a foot that night, and it changed.
Mm-hmm.
It went from cloudy and stuff to bright sunny skies, and there again I beat that shoreline with that craw tube until it was evident that wasn't going to be it. But at that point it's kind of too late.
That one changed from morning to afternoon for me, and I
Yeah.
did well in the morning, and I sucked in the afternoon on that one. And I think for a lot of guys, it was the other way around.
Yeah, I think I only weighed either 13 or 18 fish. I think maybe only 13 fish for the whole.
You got checked, didn't you?
Yeah,
Last check.
right at the end of it. But I know that I lost at least a dozen in the second half, like
Yeah.
on and coming in, and I had switched to largemouth at that time because those were at least hiding in the weeds, and I knew where they were, and just had to slow down. But they just weren't hammering it like they were in pre-fishing either. You know, instead of chomp.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that the hardest thing about tournament fishing is the analytics, or the brain power, and trusting what you have, and noticing, what did I just do? Because I just caught 3 fish in a row on this spot. You know, what was I doing differently? How was the swing of the bait? How was the wind hitting this spot? Whatever, you know, and noticing that kind of stuff, and then being able to build on that.
I think the hardest thing for me to do is decipher the difference between a thought and a feeling. And I feel like my feelings, when I have a feeling to do something, it's like I need to chase
Pay attention.
that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
the problem is I'm very active with my thoughts, so I have a tendency to overthink things, spin myself out, which I think it's natural for fishermen to do that, right? We care about the outcome of our day, and we want to control that outcome as best we can. So we're going to try to think our way through that. And I think it's some of the best fishermen I've ever met have just this uncanny ability to not do that, and just kind of, those guys like, just nonchalant about it. And that's what I struggle with, is deciphering, I think, between a thought and a feeling on the water. And it's like you have them light bulb magic moments, but it's like understanding and putting all that together is just
paying attention to them and figuring out, well, how did that just happen?
Yeah. Well, that is, to me, and if you're not paying fully attention, you might just miss it. You might think it was this, or this, but there's a little something different going on there. Yep. Like today, for example, was it the log jam on a swing with the sun not hitting it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea for today what. It just seemed kind of random today.
The 2 biggest fish, the first one you caught was in the logs.
Yep.
On a jig.
Yep.
The last one was nowhere near a log on some 6-7 foot grubbly bottom on a sleeper craw, and everything small or medium size was some tube, some Ned rig, some Senko,
topwater, floaty,
couple of caught a couple fish, missed a few on poppers, stuff like that. So
kind of puzzling that way.
Interesting. There was a lot going on.
Well, I think the best thing today is like they're kind of spread out, and you need to maximize the stretch you're fishing as best you can. And if it's not going, then, well, hopefully the next one is, right?
Yep.
But I noticed that with Charlie Wright, actually. We just fished in St. Cloud, and it was very similar. Fish are really spread out, and I wonder if that's something like that goes down before a fall. They're kind of like in a transitional phase. Water's coming down.
I just had a flashback to what's the Tarantino movie, Pulp Fiction.
Great.
You're lucky you caught me. I'm in a transitional phase.
That's a great movie.
Yeah, I'm in a transitional phase. Yeah, I think they with maybe a lack of current or brighter skies or any
wind direction going against it.
Yeah, wind direction, anything, any number of things could have been, and we did what we were just talking about. We narrowed our vision and stuck to every log we could find, and it only paid off a couple of times.
Well, the way that started, Nellie's like, we're going to flip these log jams. I'm like, cool, I've never done that. My second flip in a log jam, I catch a 4-something. Like, are you Babe Ruth? What the, like, that was cool. And I
Yep.
thought we were about to log jam our way home, but
Right.
it's weird how that works.
Yep.
It's weird how that works, but
Yeah. And that was, like I said, somewhat abnormal as far as the lower count of decent sized fish.
absolutely.
Little fish, they're all over the place, but I would have expected a dozen to 15, in that 2.5 to 4 pound.
That's why they call it fishing, Nellie.
True dat. True dat.
Well, I think what's really cool, and I think just something that you should be ultra proud of, is just the evolution of Thorne Brothers, man. I mean,
Yeah.
that place is a pretty special
Yep.
place there. And how long have you been at Thorne Brothers?
23 years.
Wow.
I'm in my 23rd year. So
Wow.
next January I'll start my 24th.
That's amazing.
If
Most
they
peop-
keep me around.
right.
We'll see.
Most people
They
don't
might fire
last
me.
at a place that long.
They might fire me. I don't know.
I don't think they'll fire you. I think you'll
Yeah.
decide to leave if you want
Yeah.
to. But talk to me about like the early Thorne days, because it was like, we're talking about the first probably muskie pro shop kind of vibe, or
Yeah,
did it not
I
start
mean,
that way?
It definitely did. Paul and Greg started the rod building business above the old Capra's building, and then they started the fly shop and Thorne Brothers in Fridley, and they people were like, oh, can you get me this? Can you get me that? So it really turned into a pro shop. Raleigh and Hallen's over in Wisconsin was doing it, and there was Smokies. There was several Pasticas, that were really muskie centric in that. But at least as far as the Twin City area, Paul and Greg really got it going as a muskie shop and custom rod shop, and then it started to kind of expand a little bit. When I started there, it was 80% muskie, and on the Thorne side, and then the fly angler side was obviously all fly stuff. And then winter would come around, and we'd sell panfish, walleye, fish houses, augers, all kinds of things like that. But they're like, oh, you can be the walleye specialist. I'm like, do you have hooks? Yeah. Do you have sinkers? Yep. Perfect. You got what you need. Bass fishing. I remember being poo-pooed, of we should get more of these chatterbaits. Those things are stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it when we moved to the new location from Fridley, to the Blaine location, then we, started expanding, and we just did it slowly and slowly and slowly. And we probably have less muskie breadth than we used to.
Really?
But muskie fishermen are, the live scope is,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's just like live scope affected walleye, fishing. We don't sell hardly any line counters or lead core, stuff for walleye fishermen. It's live scope. They aren't buying planer boards and trolling rods and things like that. And the same, we used to, as an example, a 10-inch jake. We would sell hundreds of those in October. People just like, oh yeah, we used to catch them on those. We used to troll, used to sell line counter reels hand over fist. And that's just tanking because the lures are being designed and thought out for live scope fishing. A lot of people are just doing more of that and less trolling. Some of that might be people are tired of one-line trolling in Minnesota.
Sure,
you go out to Green Bay, trolling's still a big deal.
Yeah. You can have a tree of them.
Yeah. You can have 3 lines apiece.
Yeah.
That's cool. 3 people in the boat. Now you got 9 crankbaits out there trolling through Green Bay. Probably going to catch a fish.
Probably. Snag one, you think.
You got a whole school of them rather than just trying to cast it.
How good are they at getting out of the way?
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like you'd snag one or something.
Yeah. I haven't, I think that happened. I think it happened intentionally and unintentionally, like north end of Mille Lacs when the shallow sand was filled with muskies.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, late 90s and early 2000s. There was just so many fish up there. You'd see a lot of people that, some people I'm sure tried to do it, but you'd see a lot of people that, hook one in the back because the thing is just laying there and you're burning a bucktail in, and it happens to be 3 feet down and 3.5 feet of water. And just T-bone that fish, So, yeah.
Are people still buying Swicks?
Yeah.
That's the dumbest, coolest musky lure I've ever seen.
Yep. Dive and rise, stop and go.
I remember I took a trip to Lake of the Woods, and we had a tougher day. And Steve Enoch, the guy I was with, he's really good at kind of analyzing the weather and understanding the sound or vibration or how much noise you needed to make with the lures. And it was like we were having a tough day, and I remember we picked up some Suics.
Yep.
And, I didn't grow up through the pool cue ripping a husky jerk days to really understand what the hell was going on. And I'm watching this lure, and it's like, I'm expecting some action, right? I'm expecting, but no, it's like a 2x4, and it goes, and it is the dumbest looking lure I have ever seen in the water.
Yeah.
But by golly, did we not catch 2 muskies on it that day? And I couldn't tell you why.
It's that kind of goes back to that something that's swimming nice and steady is nice and healthy. That stop and go, I'm having trouble motivating. Yeah. That stands out.
Yeah. So is that was that like the musky magwort minus the hunting?
It's
a non-hunting, non-vibrating.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly a different, back to those 10-inch jakes, this year, the last couple of years, I haven't been up to Canada in August, but my favorite thing to do, is ripping a 10-inch jake, a 8-to-1 retrieve reel, huck that thing out there as fast as I can and reel it as fast as I can and rip it as hard as I can, so it's, it's stop and stop. And there's, when they hit, it's there. It's once you've stopped and you start going again. So to some degree, like the magwort of stop, DT hits the bottom, stops, backs up, changes direction. It's all that, but a lot of that is that faster moving Suic, jerkbait, glide bait, something that's not just cruising through the water.
Yeah.
It's a little distressed looking.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What other?
Very much like the Vision 110s or Jackal re-ranges or the Stunnas or any number of, jerk bait type thing, Well, if you were on Mille
pulling
Lacs,
a jerk bait, it's a Suic that rolls.
If you were, I think and I guess I haven't tried it, but early season cold water jerk baits work great.
Oh yeah.
The longer you can let them pause, a lot of times the better it is. You just sit there. We go to Rainy Lake, early in the spring, and it was cold and snowy and crappy when we were up there. We were up the week before Memorial Day. Get on the rock piles, and you'd try and swim something over it, the paddle tail, whatever. You throw the, Jackal re-range is one of my favorites because I can beat it really hard, with a heavier rod and get that stop and go out of it. But, it was get it out there, reel it down a little bit, whack, whack, whack. And then I just leave slack line there and just wait for the line to take off. And as long as you can stand to leave that slack line in there, you're increasing your chance of a smallie or a walleye, coming to eat it. And it was, a lot of times it was equal parts.
That's probably one of the most interesting things we've talked about or that I've heard from you, and I think it's worth diving into, is how different your setup is with a re-range versus like 110. And I guess it's the most polarizing difference in two jerkbait setups that I had heard of, and it makes so much sense if after fishing the re-range that like I've had some success with it, but I never felt like I had enough meat on my jerk with it. You know?
I throw a 7.6 medium heavy moderate fast St. Croix blank that we make, and a 20-pound fluorocarbon, a straight 20-pound fluorocarbon.
That's
And
crazy.
part of that heavy fluorocarbon keeps it down,
Yep.
keeps it from wanting to work its way to the top, or even allows it to get deeper, because you can get it out there and kind of let the fluorocarbon sink a little bit,
Transit, right?
and it'll follow the dive curve of the line, or the curve of the line, and get down a little deeper.
Do you find that bait wants to rise a little bit without heavier line, like from a suspending aspect?
I don't think it's rising. I think it just needs to be violent, where 110s and that kind of stuff, stunnas, it's more of a little tappy to get them to do what they.
Introducing the chicken rod from Vocelka Fishing and Customs. This is the perfect rod for swim baits, chatterbaits, and big hair jigs like the chicken that's become so popular in Minnesota. This is a 7'6" heavy action rod with a moderate fast taper. The perfect action for landing those fish on a long cast, cover in water. Introducing the chicken rod. Visit vocelkafishing.com.
Want.
Yeah.
And I played around with it, and fished with other people. It's like, I can't believe you're catching fish doing that. But you look at how it is, and that, again, that hard whack of it, it's not just pulling it forward, it pulls it, and it almost wants to turn around. It goes sideways, and then you start again, whack, 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 and it stop it, and it almost wants to turn around.
Yeah.
So it's a totally different reaction if you try that with Vision 110s. Great bait, but if you work them too hard,
You can overwork a little.
yeah, they don't seem to react well to that. Or all of a sudden the bait's up on the surface, or
Notice that.
any number of things. So that's a more subtle.
Yeah. Do you throw jerk bait? Like, for me, it's hard for me to pick one up when the water warms up. Are you the same way?
Yeah, there's times, and I thought about that today, and I'm like, even though
Might
the
have been a
water
good day for it.
water was 74 degrees, they might have reacted,
Might fluke jerk
favorably,
bait.
yeah,
I was
favorably
thinking
to
about it
that.
too.
But I didn't bring anything with. I really didn't bring any cranks or,
Yeah.
yeah. But I've had some good success in warm water, but it's not a very often,
Yeah.
not a very often thing, and it seems to be working the weed line rather than, a rock pile or a flat.
Right. The other thing I think I've been wanting to, just spend more time messing with like different cadences. I talked to a few guys that like don't always just jerk it. Do like a pull and stop. Like some of that kind of stuff. Do you ever mess with like weird cadences or find any magic with that?
Yeah, and after I stop it, a lot of times it's not just start right away again. Is I'll do a few cranks and move it 5-6 feet, and then twitch it a couple more,
Okay.
beat it a couple more times. And there's times where you go, crank, and you're about to snap it, and then the line takes off again.
So you'll suic it a little
Kind
bit.
of, yeah.
That makes sense. And I just feel like maybe I just don't, like, kind of like we were talking about paying attention, right? And
Yeah.
Like, I feel like maybe I could benefit. It's like any lure, right? They take, like, to really know a lure, to get, like, I love listening to you talk about lures because I can tell how intimate you are with certain ones.
Yeah.
And I think we all have, techniques we're confident in or whatever. And it's like when you have that technique in your hand, there's 4 different things you can do with it,
Yeah.
right? Versus a new technique, it doesn't always
Right.
feel that way, right?
Yeah.
But you learn little nuances and ways to, trigger a bite or mixing up the reel speed or whatever it is. And I think, chatterbaits and crankbaits for me, when I started mixing up my reel speed and
Yep.
stuff, it's amazing how big a difference it would make for me. And a spinnerbait, I think about Kevin Van Dam talking about that with a spinnerbait. And it
Yep.
couldn't be more true. But
Yep.
what's hard for me is remembering what I did with my reel
Yeah.
to make it bite
Yeah.
because I have ADD. But so
Yeah.
dig into like some old Thorne Brothers stories, like early days. We live in a politically correct, can't like, you got to watch how you fart nowadays, right?
Yep.
Well, I think you can still. Yours are the best I've ever heard. But,
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You
Gold
can't
medal.
touch this man in that department.
Gold medal.
At least two of them.
Yeah, a couple of bronzes for sure.
Hollywood pay this man.
Yeah.
But what were like the old days like compared to now? And I guess you've like it's when you look back in time, it's like holy smokes, it's a big change, but you never feel it as it's happening, right?
Right. One of the reasons that so many of us wanted to work there, we had a morning shift and an afternoon shift, and when the store was in Fridley, in some degree after we moved it to Blaine, we all are fish heads. We all love fishing. That's what we want to do more than anything else. But if you were working the afternoon shift and you were on a good bite in the morning, you could call in and go, hey, can you cover me? And, Pat Smith or Matt Thompson or whoever would go, yeah, keep on it. Tell me about it when you get home, when you get here, and you get a couple extra hours, and that was a much smaller business at that time. I like that we're really still trying to keep that customer care attitude and overstaff with people to help, rather than the box store of we've got 3 people in this department for the morning and 3 in the afternoon. We staff heavily there, but a little bit of that flexibility, is gone. But that comes with, the amount of business we're doing, the amount of shows we do, all of that stuff. But, the early days, there was a lot of, hey, I'm on a good bite, or I got a big muskie going. I'm going to go back and fish it 2 more times or whatever before I come in, Cool. So people would, easily cover your shift. Well, now we do enough every day where you can't quite miss out. The sales staff can't quite just go, I can't come in this afternoon. I'm really on a big fish, or, the bass are really biting, so, so it's a big change that way, but, it's been a tremendous ride to watch us go from, gee, should we carry chatterbaits to, now
unveiling the baby jack.
Yeah. Just doing the amount of business that we do just in chatterbaits, selling thousands a year,
right.
So, or selling, I don't know what it was at the Classic. It was like 1,600 or something like that at the Classic.
That was crazy, by the way. You guys rocked that booth at the Classic. If you guys ever make it to the Classic, the Thorne booth's where it's at.
And we have great partners too. You do. Glenn Young from Z-Man, he came and pitched. He and Ron Kiffmeyer, the rep at that time, came and pitched this little TRD and hula stick and stuff to me, and I'm like, everybody's got the secret weapon. Everybody's got the magic bullet. Okay. And I think it was, they didn't even give me a pack. They gave me like 2 hula sticks and 2 TRDs. That was it. Not, they opened up a pack and took 2.
That's all you need.
two out of each, and I think it was probably like a week later. I think I'd probably fished like 3 or 4 days before I put one on and stopped in Crystal on, we call it Hawaii 5-0, but the little, before you get to the golf course, little rock strip there.
Bones,
Bones Point.
That's what it was called.
Yep, Bones Point. We call it Hawaii 5-0 because if you're going to park there, you're going to get waked. You're going to have some big surf waves coming over the side of the boat. But
I like that name better.
I hit there and it was just lights out, and I came back. I'm like, where's Ron's number? I got to call this guy. I got to get an order in. And, it just exploded, and handed out like we were talking about tonight. Larry Hansen, who guides down there all the time, and one of his partners, Dave Myers. I gave Larry one on a jig head and said, "Go try this," and he came in the next day and bought a peg full of them. Gave some to Dave. Dave comes in the next day and they're just buying, six packs of each color. And they've, the Z-Man stuff lasts a long time, but you get piked plenty with it. But yeah, it's been fun to be involved in seeing some of these brands. It's a long way around of talking about great partners for the classic, but we've had part of the luck of me being there, or of my being there, is we've developed some really good relationships with the manufacturers. So we get first issue things, or classic only releases, or that kind of stuff.
That's awesome.
So it's very cool that way, and it's fun to watch the store grow in popularity too.
Absolutely.
And we've been doing, I think this will be our 10th year at the Classic coming up, maybe even more. But wherever we go, people are like, "Oh yeah, I bought stuff from you in Oklahoma or Greenville or Montgomery or whatever. Oh yeah, I really like you. These guys are great. I ordered from you online." So going to a different part of the U.S. and meeting the customers, a lot of them that have been online only customers, or you only see them that time of year.
That is crazy. So was Thorne one of the first companies to carry Z-Man, like in Minnesota, or
there was some out there already, because I know like some of the lizards and stuff, but about the time that those
TRD
the TRDs and the hula sticks came out, that was when we locked onto it. And there may have been a few others, but we really, it was unreal at how many we sold. I kind of went against the advice of my boss at that time. Don't buy anymore. Don't buy anymore. Okay.
New is
hundreds. Yeah.
There's no data.
Yeah.
With something new, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's.
But.
And now it seems like that's just rapid. It seems like it.
Yep.
Like those trends or whatever, they used to be decade-long trends, and you see it like get a year shorter each year, and now to the point where it's like a 6 month. It's really quick now, and it's like, what are you noticing with like the TRD? It's still dangerous.
Yeah.
It's still effective, but compared to what it was when you first threw it, what have you noticed?
It's still very effective, but I think there's so many people using it. But fishing has changed too. The live scope, different tournaments, water clarities, all of that stuff has changed. We were up in Grand Rapids area this weekend. Gave my buddy a TRD, and he just had a ball and lit him up. Had a great time. Probably caught the biggest bass he's ever caught. And I followed it up 3 hours later with one of the biggest ones I've ever caught. So it still is a fish producing machine.
Absolutely.
But I think a lot of people are figuring out, that's a fun little walleye bait at the right times too. You catch.
Dang right you do.
Yeah, you might have to change your color into the pearls or the whites, or that kind of stuff that might be a little more walleye-esque, a little more minnow-esque in colors, but not necessarily.
Well, that leads me to a question of like, why are walleye colors so gay looking compared to, like, it's like, it's a natural minnow, and then all of a sudden it's like the most
pink squirrel.
It's like
Purple
it's like
Passion
the Rainbow
Sunset.
Kids, like nope, this is the Rainbow Kids.
Yep.
Why is that? Like, is it's one or the other, very bright and dumb looking, or very
it's
white?
Yeah. It seems
Never
like
thought of that.
Yeah, it seems like that more obnoxious color or brighter brighter color that way seems to be more appetizing. Now maybe it's people just saying we got to use this bright chartreuse and white bait to catch a walleye, where you might not use a bright chartreuse and white, shad wrap or crankbait, for bass fishing. I don't know.
All I could think of is like do they see worse? Do they see differently? And then
they must see differently.
That's all I could think of, right?
Yeah. It's not like, to say that bass don't bite at night probably is more that people don't fish them at night. Yeah. But if you're fishing walleyes in low light or post daylight conditions, you probably have a better chance of continuing to catch them into the dark, whereas bass seem to reach a point where they're not biting as much.
Yeah,
now maybe they change their position, maybe they look at things differently. I know that down south, in the heat of the summer, nighttime tournaments are a thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And those people are throwing a big single Colorado spinner bait and that kind of stuff, trying to make as much disturbance as possible. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's always I just thought of that. It's like, why are there bass colors seem normal to me and walleye colors don't?
That's because you bass fish more.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But yeah, there is some funky color combinations, and
bright purple and yellow seems to be a common one with walleye.
Pinks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pinks and chartreuse and white and all that kind of stuff. I started out my plastics venture. Well, actually, my very first plastics venture into walleyes were, I was lucky enough to know the mad scientist behind Power Bait. Oh, and cool. They sent me some little packages, no telling me what it was, or, didn't say Berkeley on it. It didn't say use it for this. And they said, just go fish these, try them, and I'm like, oh, okay. But I started catching walleyes, just swimming the little green pumpkin or pumpkin seed, 3-inch power grub across the tops of the rocks on Mille Lacs, and caught the snot out of walleyes on those things. But my biggest thing that I still use today is like the 4-inch zoom flukes, the super fluke and the regular fluke on a jig head, and it's pop that thing up off the bottom and it dies. Hop it up off the bottom and it dies. And watching my line, feeling for the slightest little tick, anything like that. Because even a 14, 15-inch walleye will have that thing all the way down in its gullet when they go for it. You gotta try
that with that darter head thing we were talking about today. Or maybe it's more of is it a light lift and fall type?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's less aggressive.
Yeah, I think it's I snap it pretty good.
Okay.
Where it shoots up. But I think it's the dying fall, and then it hits the bottom.
That makes sense.
If you have some injured minnows or whatever, and you throw those in the lake, or a little injured fish, and dies off.
Yeah.
There might be something on those.
We'll just go like this.
We both scratch our head at the same time, going,
Yeah. There's so much. I think to say we've figured it all out is crazy. I think. Well, it's going to change by the time you have it all figured out. That's what's cool about it. Is like.
And then something from the past comes back.
I think I think what's cool about you is how I think the past is the present or the future, depending how you're fishing it, looking at it. But the stuff you're doing, I feel like maybe is the minority, which can be a really good thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because you think about it, everybody's throwing the new cool stuff, right?
Yep.
It means they're seeing less of the old stuff. You can't tell me that doesn't play to a man's advantage.
Yeah, there's a reason that whatever crankbait it was, there's a reason that Poe's super cedar baits used to be amazing bass lures. When people stopped throwing them, they still catch fish.
Yeah, I bet they probably eat them better than they ever have now, just because of that.
There's just something different about them. There's a reason that they were as popular, the magworts or, down deep rattle and fat wraps.
Yeah.
You know, a friend of mine who had a bunch of those, you know, I bought 60 of them or so, you know, from him, and I'll still pull those out, you know, from time to time, and it's something different.
You ever
And
throw
something-
them shad wraps for bass?
I've tried.
Heard it's
Yeah.
Scarless told me. He's
Yeah.
like, you better be doing that. I
Yeah,
was like,
the number 8s and number 9s, you know, and like down on the river, I throw the rattle and shad wrap.
Okay,
The
yeah.
number 5 rattle and shad wrap, and you catch a bunch of smallmouth and white bass and walleyes and just a variety of things. But mostly, I'm intending it for walleye stuff.
sure.
You throw a square bill out in the same area, and all of a sudden your catch changes. The bass seem to be favoring a different wobble, a different action.
Mm-hmm.
But they'll eat the rappalas, you know, the shad wraps and rattle and shad wraps.
To me, it's not a flat side, but it's a similar vibration or action to a flat side, or would you disagree? More of a roll versus a...
Yeah,
I'm a big flat side fan.
yeah,
So.
yeah. That's I do some with that. I haven't fallen in love with them yet, but I've got enough to where I'll try them.
Seems
know,
like I'm
and-
picky about them. It's like, yeah. Well, any crankbait, it's weird how it's like you feel one and it's like,
Yeah.
and then you like feel one. It's like,
Yeah.
I'd keep throwing this.
Or this situation, you know, this situation calls for it. You know, I made fun of Thompson. We were down on the river fishing one time, and he pulls out the little flat-sided Rapala, you know, and proceeded to absolutely kick my ass on walleyes and smallmouth. And I went, "Pfft, what are you going to do with that?" Well, okay. That's how I started to buy some and putts with them at different times. You know,
Yeah.
fishing with numbers of people that fish for different things in different ways. It's all good information.
Oh, it's amazing
you may
what you
not be
learn.
able to go, I'm going to turn this into something now, but it's good to see something different because you might hit the right situation. And go,
Absolutely.
"Ooh, this makes sense."
Yeah, and
This
I
makes
think
sense in
fishing
this
is
spot.
super conditional or variable that way. But yeah.
That was a long time ago.
I don't know that guy's name, but that is the best mustache I've seen in a long time.
He, that is a longtime friend of mine, Greg Peterson from Mason City, Iowa. And he and I used to do the Wave Whacker tournament. I don't know what we did, 14, 15 years of it.
Look at that
And-
mustache, dude.
You should see him now. Generally, his beard is like down mid chest, you know. And when he was young, like this, and you know, I think he's 70. I think he's 70 now.
Okay.
Might be a little bit. Might be 71. So it's gray beard now, but he would look like an animal. Did you see a little bit of eyes sticking out and everything else was just beard? And you mentioned Tommy Scarless.
Yeah.
Tommy's at the house one time, staying there for the Wave Whacker tournament. He looks at Greg and he goes, "Man, that beard's so big, you could flush quail out of that." Yeah.
Tell him to ditch that beard. That's a disservice to that mustache.
Yeah.
He needs
No,
to
it's
bring
still
that back.
it's still big, and I don't know where my phone is, but yeah, I have a picture.
Greg's his name?
Yeah, I reconnected with him after a long hiatus of me having kids, you know, or a kid, and working and everything, and he's busy being a grain farmer. And we got together a couple of winters ago down at Red Wing, and you know, it was just like old times again. So it was a lot of fun. But yeah, there's a picture of us holding a couple of walleyes or sauger, and he's just got this giant mustache that turns into a beard that he used to like do this. He'd like pull it out of the way so he could eat. It would get so big. Yeah.
Greg, this is a public service announcement. Bring that stash back. Bring just the stash, just the bushy stash. It's legendary.
Yeah.
And you make John look like a baby next to you in that.
Well, I was a baby.
Well, you're
I don't know, what was that?
Probably a handsome young fella ready to chase a few women. Who
I used to
knows?
be fat. Let's see. That's 1999.
Was it?
That's 1999 is what the placard says there.
I don't think they hardly sell any wave whackers anymore.
Not as many. I think they still do. I think they still do, but I don't.
Warrior folks that you get an old Python or something that has a cracked one.
Yeah, but man, that was always the thing. You get a new boat, get a set of wave whackers. I gotta, and then they'd want to measure for each different hull design and transom design and everything, and they made them to custom fit virtually everything you could imagine with a kicker motor or electric or whatever on there.
Well, you know what, Nellie? If you ain't back trolling, I don't know if you're fishing to win.
Right. Yep.
And it does, like, you see them tiller boats and, like, how precise they are in reverse. I mean, it made a lot of sense. I never understood it till I kind of knew boats a little bit better in the pivot point and just the steering mechanics of that versus a console boat. But could you what didn't make sense to me is why you couldn't back troll with a console boat. It just maybe was easier with the tiller because you're right there.
Too much time doing this, and you can do just little adjustments.
Well, it's just
with
like
that
fishing a jig.
with that tiller handle. Yeah, this is the first steering wheel boat I've ever owned.
You were a tiller guy.
Everything has been tiller.
Kind of stopped making them.
Yeah, they've lost favor. They're still, Warrior's still doing a tiller. Crestliners and Lunds are still doing tillers, but the days of I don't want to say functional or dysfunctional tiller. I ran the Ranger 620 tillers for a number of years, and I ran a 115 Yamaha on the back. 41 mile an hour boat at top end, forward in gear, 1.8 trolling, and then people said, oh, that's not fast enough. So now you're rating for a 175 or a 225, and now you see these guys running these big giant tillers. Some part of me says, why not have a full console and a full windshield? If you're going to have that, if you're going to have that big a boat,
Well, them tillers are scary. Dude. Like,
they can be.
It's a lot of torque on your arm, and
a lot of that is a hydraulic steering and steering assist and all that kind of stuff.
They've kind of had to go to that
in those bigger motors. Yeah, you virtually have to.
Yeah. Just
to handle that.
Well, if you no feedback steering and what that's like, trimmed down,
right?
Like,
yeah.
So I don't. Yeah, that's scary. Even no feedback, like how guys used to run, like them really go fast bass boats with no feedback steering. I'd be like, I'm staying on land.
white knuckle to keep it from.
Dude, like death machines.
Yep.
Like feels that way compared to now, no feedback, blah blah blah.
Yep.
And still had this new steering system almost kill me, but
yeah.
So it
that's the
ain't
scary
tiller.
part to me.
It can happen in any boat, just so you know.
Yeah, that's the scary part to me is, okay, it's a fly-by-wire system. It's a throttle and steering is, a servo telling something else, or a little computer telling a servo to put pressure one way or the other or make it go faster. I know computers are much better.
It can be,
but it can go.
Is our vehicles fly-by-wire?
I don't think the steering.
Right.
But like I notice that transmissions, there's no gear shift anymore. You just press drive, press reverse,
Yeah.
press park,
A little dial on the Dodgers, I've noticed.
Yep. That's not connected to a wire.
No.
It's connected to something, maybe a real thin wire that goes and tells the transmission to switch, but
you've probably got your arm trained, but isn't it funny how we're such a creature of habits? Like if you get in a different vehicle and like you go to shift and you're grabbing for your truck shifter and you're, oh shit.
Yep. Well, I do that. I have my little runaround car.
Yeah.
And I have the Yukon. So, I get in the little car and I'm feeling for the gear shift, and it's not there. It's down here. So
That's me every time.
Yep.
If I
Well,
was to drive your car, it'd be
yeah, I do that, and going from my boat to like my brother's boat, which is a keypad start system. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I grab a hold of it or fish with my buddy Tim, you know, and get in the boat, and I'm like, "Where's the key?"
easiest boat to steal. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's every. I think that's
Every Ranger.
yeah.
Easiest boat to steal.
Yeah.
And
I think
don't
my
even know how
brother-
you change the code.
Yeah, I think my brother did his to match his phone number.
Oh, so you can change. There's
Yeah.
a way to change it.
Yep.
I'm just not smart enough.
Yeah, most people just go, "Pfft, just 1, 2, 3, 4, start, fine. Yeah,
I mean, do people steal boats? Have you heard about that? Like
Yeah.
on water?
I
never
don't
even
know
heard
about.
of it happening.
I don't know about on the water.
Like starting it that way,
Yeah.
you know? Like
Yeah.
where are they going to go? They got to steal your trailer too to really go somewhere.
in Détroit, which is the French pronunciation for Detroit.
Oh.
We were at a walleye tournament out there, mid '90s. Guy had his boat and truck and stolen out of the hotel parking lot.
Oh my God.
Wake up in the morning, your truck's gone, and they got the truck started and the boat was hooked to it, and poof. See ya. Yeah.
They find him?
Not that I ever know.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quite the heist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Quite the heist. And did you know
But you-
that it's pronounced Milwaukee, which is
Milwaukee.
Algonquin for the good land?
Yes. I always try and make Detroit sound a little better.
That's the best I've ever.
Détroit.
Détroit.
Yeah, it's French for Detroit.
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, it makes it sound prettier.
Honestly, it doesn't
And I'm
sound like a good town
I'm
until you say it like that.
I'm sure since it's been probably 25 or more years since I've been out there, it's probably a lot nicer.
Detroit?
But it wasn't so pretty for a long time. I know that.
I think it's. I've heard it's a hellhole.
If you're from Detroit, I'm sorry.
Détroit.
Détroit. Yeah.
I'm trying. Now I'm like I know. There's a song that's like "Je veux coucher avec toi," and I heard that's something like "Will you have sex with me" or something.
Yeah.
But I'm not a French
Lady
major by any means.
Marmalade.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's the song.
Voulou
Coucher avec toi, sister.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Listen, heard it in my mom's van going to the grocery store as
Yeah.
a kid, you know? Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. All the good
Yeah.
jams, all the 90s cheesy lady songs.
I
Alanis
think
Morissette.
I was probably closer to 50 years old before I figured out that the name of that song was called Lady Marmalade, not whatever.
Voulez-vous
Who-
coucher
yeah,
avec toi?
Yeah.
I wouldn't even, yeah, you don't even know how to spell that in the search bar of
Right.
whatever. You probably didn't even have one then.
Yeah. Search bar.
Man.
You young kids are so lucky. We
I-
used to have a
Give and
Yeah.
take, man. They were simpler times. We don't get to deal with that. We
Right.
get to deal with the distraction of everybody trying to
Get
garner
a-
our attention and money.
Yep. Yep.
And I think there's a lot of kids that would want to go back to that until they realize some of the things you guys had to do that we have so freaking easy now. And we
We used-
maybe take it all back.
Pre-cell phones, I'm a hunter. I would go to Canada deer hunting for 10 days. No cell phone. My friends and family had no idea if I was ever coming back.
Yeah.
You would go on vacations. You truly went to the boundary waters. You had no communication.
No.
Nothing.
There's a lot more faith and trust kind of, or was it just...
Or reliance on yourself not to do something stupid.
Yeah. There's no...
Yeah.
You can't call somebody bail you out.
Right.
What's crazy to me is how you would meet people for something
Oh,
somewhere
You'd
and be there on and have both people show up on time somehow.
yeah. Yeah.
Like that's wild to me.
Yeah.
And then like if you didn't, something happens. Like your first date, you pop a tire on the way. She thinks you stood her up.
Sure.
You can't even text her and be like,
Yep.
"Hey, just so you know, I popped a tire." And she's
Yep.
like, Lied to me again, stood me up.
Yep. Yeah. Well, yeah, you had to call people. There was no texting. You could send a message, but it was called a letter, and it took 1 to 5 days to get wherever it was. You could call and leave an answering, a message on your voicemail. Yeah. I don't think people were as late. I don't think they were as sing-song about, it's okay if I'm late.
Yeah, it was different time.
I think it was, hey, you said you'd be here at this time. This is the time that we're doing this deal. This is the day we're doing this boat deal. This is the day that we're going fishing, or the time that we're meeting for dinner, that kind of stuff. I think people now are, we can change plans because it's so easy.
I think about
less committal.
Well, I think we try to do a lot more in a day now. Like, if you're not, besides fishing, like if I'm fishing, like that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But aside from fishing, like my parents, for like the amount, or me right now trying to manage, like the amount I'd like try to cram into a day, I don't know if you would even try to pull that off back then. So I don't know.
And you didn't take it home.
Yeah.
Because you didn't have direct access to your business or computer or whatever in your hand.
There's probably a very natural work-life balance that took place back then because it kind of had to happen. But what's some other things we take for granted now that we're just like, how would we like
GPS on your boat?
Oh, yeah. Dude, that's the biggest.
Yeah.
That is the greatest, single most influential technology in fishing.
Right.
And you cannot change my mind on that.
To be able to, to go from the Loran Sea navigation system, which worked great on the ocean and the Great Lakes and that kind of stuff, to inland waters in Minnesota or Dakotas or whatever, to where it was, it's too cloudy out. Oh, it's too dark out. It's too windy out. It's, it's too sunny out. Everything messed with Loran Sea, which was tower-based and an electronic pulse from tower to tower, and you would try to triangulate. Well,
it's math. You had to do some math. Or not, it did the math for you, but you had to read between the lines a little bit.
Right, and especially most of Minnesota, you weren't able to triangulate very often. You had to go, well, it's pretty close over here, But, the first GPSs that I ever used, is you could save the spot. You could see a little dot. Actually, the first ones were just numbers. Just a readout of your latitude and longitude. So you could save those waypoints, but there wasn't even a screen on there to say, you could set it up so you'd pick your waypoint that you were at, and then it would tell you that it's 286 degrees, 1.3 miles. So you'd have to start driving the boat, and it would say you're now course over ground is 286 degrees, and you're going 30 miles an hour. And so you would try and stay a little left or a little right of 286 degrees and watch your spot count down. And then you'd watch your numbers match your go-to numbers for what your waypoint was. And then it was huge. The first like LMS 350s from Lowrance that had just a screen, just a blank screen. But you could see that waypoint, and then you could see it in relation to other waypoints and stuff.
And would show your boat there too?
Yes.
Oh,
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
See.
Show your boat there. Yep.
And then like that took all the like lining up the tree. Oh shit!
Yeah.
They cut down the tree.
Yep.
Or lining up the dock. Oh shit! They moved the dock.
Yep. It's foggy. It's cloudy. It's nighttime. I can't see the shoreline. All that kind of stuff.
I can't feel a rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fun part for me is I did a lot of years with that, LMS 350, and then the X15s came out. The first ones that would run, some basic map chip. So you could buy a C-map cartridge to fish the Great Lakes, and there was some basic stuff there. And then Orrin Tutt, who had Tutt's Bait up in Garrison, he took an LMS 350 and basically busted it apart. He was a computer programmer guru
dude,
type thing, and he went around to all the resorts, all the guides, all that kind of stuff.
Call that autism now, but
Yeah. It's called engine.
I got to touch the tisms
Yeah.
too, so I'm not talking shit. I think it's a superpower.
But Oren would go. He did a lot of it in the wintertime, but he created this map for Mille Lacs called the Walleye Whiffer Map, and he would go out. It did a ton of it in the wintertime, quite a bit in the summertime too, but in the wintertime, he'd go out with the auger. Okay. John says he's got a waypoint here that's a ridge that tops at 19 feet and runs east and west. So he'd go out there to that and then start punching holes on all sides of it, fill up the memory, the waypoint capabilities.
Basically make dots around
Yep,
that.
all around it, and then go home and then load that into his computer, and his computer would draw the shape of a structure.
Oh, dude.
So he did that for years. He did it for like 3 years, to come up with the Walleye Whiffer map, and then got it good enough, to where it would show all the mud flats and the major structures of gravel and stuff. And there'd be some little zigzag lines that didn't have any shape to it. It was just an edge that he'd run into and follow that. And that was long before, Lake Master, came out and actually started to do a sonar depth correlation with the GPS.
Sure.
Yeah. But they did the same thing. They went out there, all these high def maps that are out there. They didn't just make them up. They got to go out there.
Oh yeah, zigzag.
You
had a 2D cone.
Yeah, and it might be a little different on a river situation or a reservoir situation because they survey all of that, prior to flooding the reservoir. So that might. But there's a reason Lake of the Woods didn't have a good map until 10 years ago.
That makes perfect sense.
Or maybe a little bit more than that, or all of Lake of the Woods. They had the U.S. side because you couldn't go into Canada, and you couldn't map in Canada because that was like stealing their technology or stealing their information. So
thanks, Trudeau.
Yeah, way to go. But yeah, that's probably the GPS to be able to land on that same spot again that you caught fish on. Imagine, the early days of Minotaur, not early days, but the days of, Teddy Capra on Minnetonka. The amount of hours that he spent, or they, that group of quality anglers spent with their sonar set on a 60-foot scale so they could see a second echo or a third echo, and then dropping down and feeling around and going, okay, this is rock. Yep, it's just like I thought. Oh, this is really bouldery. Okay, and drive over it and go, okay, so it's in front of that blue house with the white gable, and it follows the line of dock out, but then it turns out this way. And then to be able to go, all right, this is the spot. Boop, get back to it every time. And then now, people just take it for granted that your unit, your GPS is pre-programmed. You buy a Garmin, you buy a Humminbird, buy a Lowrance. It's pre-programmed with that map already in there.
I'm going to show you something,
and an amazing, or that you can get it on your phone now,
dude. And so, real quick, while I'm showing you this, you heard I heard Ted Capra used to carry rope and I can't remember what he used, but I'm going to say dumbbell. Does it make sense? And he would just idle with a rope and a dumbbell till it went clunk.
Yep.
It's like, whoa.
When I was a little kid, in the summers, my mom was a school nurse, and her last day of school was our last day of school. She worked in the same district. So we'd go up to our place at Mille Lacs. And when I was like 5 to 10 years old, there was a little resort just down the road. And Red Braga, the guy that owned the resort, he would drive the launch. He didn't have a depth finder. He did it oh, we caught fish out here, but he would do that, that same kind of thing where the sash weights in old window weights, it's just, I don't know, cucumber size, big cucumber size weight with a hole in the end of it, and they'd tie a rope onto that, and it's kind of sticky. That might be mud. Oh, that's not rock, but it didn't stick in, so we're at sand, and all of a sudden, tink, tink, and you start to drag it, and it's like ding, 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 ding. Oh, there's some gravel. Okay, now we know what kind of bottom we're over.
Absolutely.
So
That's like,
or maybe they did have a flasher, but they didn't know how to look at it and go, this is early 70s.
yeah.
72, 73, somewhere in there, so there's some flashers around, but
Sure.
not, for somebody to go, yeah, if you set it on a 60-foot range, you'll see that second echo come in, so.
Right.
Yeah, to
Setting
let you know
limit.
that that's a hard bottom,
That's still a great trick.
Yeah.
To this day. I don't think there's enough people that know it exists or utilize it, but it still works, especially in the grass or whatever it
Yep.
might be if it's not too thick. But
Yeah. And turning your Numi clued me into this one, or we were kind of about the same time, and I'm like, how are you shooting through the milfoil? And he says, contrary to what you would think, you turn your sensitivity down to make the milfoil go away, and then put it on that 60-foot range, 80-foot range, whatever, 50-foot range, and then you're looking, and you're driving through that milfoil. Back when Tonka had milfoil,
right.
You drive through that stuff, and you can see your bottom, and all of a sudden that second bottom would show up. It's like, okay. And if you got a third one, you're on rock.
Yeah.
You might be on sand for a while, but a third one would show up, and it's like, yep, that's rock. But a lot of people would, more sensitivity, more power, more sensitivity, but all that would do is just black out the whole screen. And it's like, nope, turn it down till you can just barely see the bottom through the weeds.
It's funny you say that.
2D, on the 2D.
LiveScope is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you say that, like,
Yep.
I learned that trick with LiveScope. You can turn that gain way down,
Yep.
and you see through the grass better, and
Yep.
sometimes see some fish in them if it's
Yep.
not too thick or whatever.
Yep.
But like, that's why I have so much respect for the people who came before me, and I guess I may be lucky that I'm kind of I don't want to say I'm a full-on tweener, because I haven't lived through what you've lived through, but like how I grew up learning to fish
You make
offshore.
it sound like I've had a tough life.
No, it's you've lived through change in technology and a massive one. And
Oh, yeah.
I guess for me, growing up, I went from no internet to dial-up internet, and I remember, sitting in my parents' basement waiting for that to load, and then learning to fish. Jim Moyna was my idol as a kid, and
Yeah.
all I read about this football jig thing, right? And I just had this little 12-foot boat, and I remember I'd go out to my lake, and I wanted to find the stuff I couldn't see.
Yep.
And I would use that football jig
Yeah.
as my finder, and then I would have to try to find. What sucked is, like, you spend all this time to find something, and then you almost kind of have to find it again.
Yeah. Yep.
And then I remember I got a handheld, so I have a huge appreciation and respect for how you guys used to fish. And
Yep.
I think, when you have stuff like this now, I just found out this existed. Look at that. That is on Navionics on your phone with side imaging overlay.
Oh, wow.
All the stuff that I found and scanned for, like, most of it you can see on there. And, you don't need to spend more than 10 minutes
It's by my
to
house.
find.
By my old house.
I bet you could look at that map and be like, oh, shit, that's there. And
Yeah.
I've been fishing that, and it's not on the map for how long?
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's like, and I talked to Charlie Wright. I'm like, how do you know about this? He's like, oh yeah, I've known about that 3-4 years. Remember Seth told me one day, he's like, was so pissed about it. I'm like, what is it? He's like, you have Navionics? I'm like, yeah. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no, this is awful. Like, if you found the stuff before the stuff comes out, that stuff's the devil.
Oh, yeah.
Like when Lake Master came out with the updated Lake Coronas chip, I don't know who that guy was, but guy has a special place in hell.
Yeah. There's a lot of a lot of cool stuff. I used to spend a lot of time west of the main, west of the main gravel bars. And again, double the depth. It's 35 feet of water, so I'm putting it out at, 80-foot depth range and looking for that second echo.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times where you wouldn't have more than maybe over 100 yards. You might have a foot of depth change, but you'd see that second echo and you'd see that bottom harden up, and the gravel wouldn't quite, this was, the gravel had been covered over by sediment from years and years and years, but the fish still hung on it like it was a piece of structure. They'd be on the edges when they were like least active, and more towards the middle of it, even though there's just maybe a foot or two, maybe not even 2 feet, just a real subtle, but it's a hard bottom change.
Yeah.
Almost, because it's still soft. You take a 3-ounce bell sinker and drop into it, and it's, it still kind of sucks on it. But the bait would hang there because the bugs would come out, and then the bait is hanging out there, and the walleyes go, let's eat those guys.
Yep. When we're done with that, we might eat their bugs too.
Yeah. We might just follow them to almost to the surface. So, yeah, a lot of that. It would be interesting because I haven't, I don't fish Mille Lacs really very much, once every couple of years now. But to go out with side imaging now, and look around to see what some of those areas would look like with side imaging, would that pick up the bottom transition?
I don't know, would it?
It
seems to.
Some of that kind of looks like it, but it's still a little janky.
For sure. You still got some line, there's a little error, but hard versus soft, light versus dark.
Yeah.
What's crazy to me about that is how much sediment's in a lake.
A lot.
It's crazy. You don't think about the there's two depths essentially. It's the bottom that can move and the bottom that can't move.
Yep.
And I don't think we think about that as much as we. Well, maybe we shouldn't think about it. I don't know.
The mud flats are gravel moraine hills left deposited by the tail end of the glacier that formed Mille Lacs.
Yeah.
But there is feet of detritus, sediment stuff, biological things, bug carcasses and goo and everything else that have, settled down there and built up. It's a weird thing. But again, you go and put that sinker down in there and it's stuck. But truly the gravel structures you see on the south end of the lake are still exposed, but who knows, 100 years, 500 years, 1,000 years from now, a lot of those will probably be covered by soft biological leftovers.
Poop, fish poop, worm poop,
bug carcasses. Bug carcasses, fish poop, stuff that falls from the air, algae blooms, falling to the, anything that, could be in the water. So,
do you ever target soft bottom instead of hard, or do you find that there's, for bass, I know it seems like there's a time of year where they actually will gravitate to the softer bottom?
I've tried a little bit to kind of figure it out, especially you see numbers of fish over the soft bottom, on the 360 or side imaging or something like that. It's probably a better live scope or forward facing sonar is probably a better tool to figure that out.
Noah is probably the one who's figured that out the most, just talking to him. And then Johnston Westmoreland is another guy I know who's early season and late. It seems to be because that mud I think heats up better, holds heat better in the springtime or something is the way Noah's described it to me. But it's so dang hard to fish. It's you hope they're eating a jerkbait that day or something, right? But he'll crank a Sunny B on that mud.
Yeah.
And that's what's weird to me. It's you got to be extra right with your diving depth. And I don't know if he's catching them mid-column and not I don't know how you bump mud like that and not
And
mess up my crank.
when I
you
think
know?
about it, I think Mille Lacs mud, because we were just talking about
Yeah.
it, you know. So mud bottom, true mud bottom there starts at 28 feet a lot of places, you know. So I'm like, I might not go try and figure that out. But
No.
but you know, you say Noah, well, now you're talking southern, western, shallower,
Different kind of deal.
different kind of lake. The lake might be 15 feet deep total, you know, in the deepest spot or something like that, you know. So there's got to be something to do there.
Well, there's enough like food on them mud flats that
You got bugs hatching,
Bugs
all
and
larvae
bait.
hatching all the time, and then the young of the year, last year's minnows are out there feeding on that, and all of a sudden you get hatches of bugs and stuff that are coming up, and now all that school of minnows coming up, and the bass or walleyes or crappies or whatever are going, let's eat some of those. Yeah.
and back before scope, I mean, that was a thing for big fish. Like that hard high spot on a mud flat, you know, there'd be it'd be covered in mud or you know that
Yep.
little sediment, and then you'd have a couple little sweet spots on that
Yep.
mud flat where it'd be hard, and yeah, it used to have it. The issue I had was consistency and numbers. I didn't, but I know there's some Mille Lacs guys that would probably have that deal figured out that maybe aren't talking about it. But like, why aren't more smallmouth? I don't know if it's because they're not being targeted there or if they're not there, but there's no reason to me why they shouldn't be there with the amount of pressure they get everywhere else.
I've seen live scope screenshots and fish being caught 30, 31, 32 smallmouth
Yep.
being caught in that 30-foot plus water soft bottom
What time of year?
now
Yeah.
within the last month, within the last few weeks. You know, so there are guys that are figuring that out, you know, west of 3 Mile or, you know, off of that hard structure that would normally, you know, the fish would normally gravitate to, or maybe there's the fishermen gravitate towards that.
I think
Yeah.
there's a combination of both of that,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
like you
So-
get hit in the head enough on this reef, I'm probably going to try to find a nice mud bar full of food that I'm not
Yep.
getting hit in the head on.
Yeah. Well,
But then you'd think walleye guys would catch them more often. Or maybe they do.
they do. They do. I mean, people are, you know, out trolling crankbaits on the deep gravel or mud and come up with a smallmouth. You know, if you targeted them, like these people, you know, like the screenshots and stuff. And I mean, it's not, oh, there's 2 smallmouth.
Oh, it's
There's
30 of them.
just a line of them.
I think that must be where the tullabies go to eat. Or partially, maybe.
It might be, you know, it might be too that, you know, everything eats mayfly larvae.
Oh, yeah.
Everything loves mayfly larvae, you know, from the basically walleyes, bass, tullabies, perch, everything eats that stuff, you know. So if you're a smallmouth, then you can just go along and go, you know, and suck up a bunch of mayfly larvae. Do you have to work as hard to dig crayfish out of the rocks?
No.
You know? So, yeah, it's a,
The hard thing about Mille Lacs is if you don't have a bunch of time, you're going up there to catch them. But
Right.
yet you want to learn and explore, and it never seems like you can get both done in a day.
right, oh, yeah, a day.
And I want to every time I go up there for a day. It's
Yeah.
like I want to explore, I want to learn, find a new area,
Yep.
and I want to catch 25 pounds. And it just
Yeah.
seems like you end up exploring until you're like, okay, I want to go catch some bass now.
Yep.
But I'd love to spend 3 days, 2 of them exploring, and then one of them.
In a lake like that, you know, or a lake like Minnetonka, you know, trying to learn and explore something like that, you just have to grid it out. You have to say, I'm staying in this section,
You do.
you know, break it into 10 sections or whatever, you know, circle the, you know, give yourself 3 miles from shore all the way around the lake.
Well,
you
I
know,
think that's the
and then
magic of you
breaking
guys
it-
now.
Break it into little pieces.
I think our generation tries to get way too much done in a day, and I think about my roots, and it's put the trolling motor down and really intimately learn an area,
Yeah.
right? And that's, I mean, It's what I'm good at. I should I should go back to that more often. But it's like with all this technology and what we're up against for competition, it's like you feel like you can't do that anymore. You know, you just feel like you can't because you feel like someone's hacking it better, faster.
Yeah.
Or there's something else going on. There's something going on somewhere, and you need to find it.
Yep. Yeah, and I think almost the technology end takes a little bit of the exploration away. Well, I've got live scope. I've got side imaging. Well, some people have live scope. I still haven't done it. I've got all of this stuff. I've got these great maps. I should be just as good as the next guy or whatever, so it's almost like I don't want to make it sound, because if I had been born 20 years ago versus 60 years ago, I'd be doing the same thing. I have all this technology at my, I'm going to learn this way. But I think you learn more with a little less technology. You get hung up. We've talked about it before. I see people just not fishing.
Yeah.
They're on the trolling motor and they're looking and they're holding a rod, but they aren't fishing,
It seems like it's like Noah is a good example of that old school style working, because he finds, he fishes that whole bay and he finds the sneaky stuff that other people don't find because of that. But then it's like, but that's not all the time. Like if it's a lake with grass, it seems like that's extra important. And if it's a lake without grass, it seems like I don't fish fast enough.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah, it's all interesting on, going back to the GPSs, from the first one with just lining up your top two, longitude and latitude with where you're currently at and zeroing in on it, to having a dot on the screen. And my friend Corey Studer, who I guided with a lot up at Mille Lacs, and Greg and several friends, we'd share waypoints. Oh, I found this. This is a really cool spot. Try this, when the X15 came out and the first Lake Master chip, which had gull, white bear, Mille Lacs. There was one other one. I don't think it wasn't Minnetonka. It's like gull, white bear, Mille Lacs. Some other reasonable body of water. It might have been Leech. Mm-hmm. 3 really good lakes, and white bear just because the guy Ron that first figured out how to do it. He lived on white bear.
Okay.
So he spent a lot of time practicing out there. But so we've got all of these waypoints and your X15 and your Lake Master chip. And now you start plugging in all the waypoints, and it was amazing how many times our waypoint that we saved there was the best spot on that structure. It was, if you had gotten to look at a map, a really good 1-foot contour map ahead of time, you'd go, you should try there. And it was like, and we'd spend hours just driving over stuff and go, okay, well, it seems shallower over there. It's deeper here. This is the narrow spot. This is the low spot. This is the high spot. All right, boop, I'm going to save that. So that was really fun that way. And I still have handwritten sheets of 46 93 082 by 93 94, just handwritten waypoints.
And that's where I understand. Like, I understand how it's frustrating to spend that amount of time just for somebody to pull up to it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that frustration. Yeah. And I don't think, like, kids nowadays take that for granted.
Yeah. Not even kids. Adults. Everybody.
Everybody.
Yep.
They can fish. There are no secrets anymore.
Nobody would,
where you want.
Yeah. Nobody would buy a GPS that didn't have a map chip or capability of taking one.
Dude, like you pull up on someone now, or you fish an area now, we all know you're pulling up to something. If you pulled up on somebody back in the day,
Yeah.
that was a whole different conversation.
Yeah.
What was that?
That was
No.
there was some of that, but I mean, you had, I had, my guide service info, phone number, all that on the side of my boat. And I just learned that, people were going to, oh, those guys are catching fish. Oh, that guy says, Johnson's Portside Guide Service on it. So I'm going to go follow that. He must know what he's doing. I'm going to follow that. There's all kinds of goofy little things, throw a marker buoy out
Oh yeah,
with 6 feet of rope down.
used to be a thing.
Yep.
I don't
And
think
just let the people follow that marker buoy because they're,
that poor marker buoy company.
yeah.
They're like,
Yep.
no, we'll just make planer boats. Oh shit.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was a lot of, I don't know. And there's certainly really obvious spots on lots of bodies of water that I like to fish, but I'm really looking for number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 down the list. Yep.
And that's become the deal now.
Yeah.
The deal isn't that thing
Yeah.
on the map anymore.
Yep.
And you know what the most popular pattern in the 90s and early 2000s was, Nellie?
Spearing.
The Ranger pattern.
The Ranger.
He's a
Oh,
Ranger.
oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Before that, in the 80s, it was
Yeah.
probably the Lund pattern,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yep.
What about that? Like, that to me was like a cool story. Like the build up and inception of Ranger, like hearing about George Little being the first guy to bring up a deep V boat when everybody thought a Lund Baron was like the best riding boat. And like,
Yep.
man, I'd be licking my chops
Yeah.
if I was George Little at that time.
Yeah.
Try this.
Yeah. Give this a shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, George was kind of joining in right about the time that those 620s,
Yeah.
620 wheel boats were getting released, and that was a pretty interesting time. That was one of the first, like Bass Pro had the Targa out at the same time, which was an amazing riding hull, just absolutely amazing. But about 4 feet up from the transom, right on the top deck, every one of them that I ever saw would crack right there. There was something in the construction and flex, but a friend of mine from the Dakotas, Dan Steer, used to run the Targas, and those things they just crush the waves and fast, and not take any water over the bow, all that kind of stuff. So they were kind of all chasing that, the early 620s and the Targas and all, and the Skeeter 1850s and stuff
Right.
like that. They're all trying to figure it all out. But yeah, that 620 really made glass boats in the walleye world, because the 690, that was pretty good, through the early 90s through the late 90s, but it still was, not.
Kind of a hybrid.
Yeah. I mean, you go to Wisconsin and
Well,
you find one of those, it's probably a muskie fisherman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Recon brand was probably keeping those alive, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The, the Ted Takasakis of the world, driving the 690s, and Steve Heiting and the muskie guys, and the Waller guys, they kept those going, but that wasn't, they weren't selling huge numbers of boats until that 620 hit. And then it went.
Well, I mean, look now, every stockbroker north of the Mason-Dixon owns a 620. It's crazy.
Yep. Or a big Vexus or a big Skeeter.
Well, now it's Vexus, right? And that's
Yep.
a cool story in and of itself. Was like Ranger got bought by Bass Pro, and like it's kind of like a Harley Davidson story. But what's weird about the boat business is how small it is. Like,
Oh, yeah.
where Ranger boats are built is in a small town in the middle of Arkansas. Bass Pro buys them, and at first it was like, oh, this is going to be good. It's more buying leverage, blah,
Yep.
blah, 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 blah. But it was like, it was very clear that that deal was not, didn't go the way I think it was talked about going, because
Yeah.
it got personal. I think Ranger's been bought and sold by a number
Yep.
of people, but like talking to Randy, like the thing that always maintained the same throughout those sales was those guys kept control of the product and the quality
Right.
and the integrity of the product
Yep.
never came into question. We do that. You guys do the investment,
Yep.
the business side. And I think Johnny was the first to change the product and
Yep.
and overrule that. And those guys, what's cool about, I've worked with a lot of boat companies just with my time at Intune, and I've seen I've met very few that actually really care about the product versus like the bottom line on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament, like it was more than a spreadsheet to those guys. Like they saw their legacy. Like, you can't build it this way. You can't all of a sudden build it this way.
Yep.
And they left. And it's like, that makes sense. But what's crazy is they built the Vexus plant 1.5 miles away from the Ranger plant.
Well, that's because everybody lives there.
Well, in the
Yeah.
but it's like the town ain't big enough for the two of them. That's a statement. Like, and they already had staffing issues with Ranger keeping people working.
Yeah.
It's like,
That was always an interesting thing to go down for the factory tour in December down there.
yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
But it's like, now what do? They build a state-of-the-art facility, an actual air-conditioned factory, a better working environment,
Yep.
and they bring their A-team back and they start all over again. And now you've got the Vexus legacy, which to me, I guess, built my career in the boat world of this industry. So I think some of that old Ranger stories and some of that heritage, I think, is something that most of my generation overlooks or isn't aware of, but I think it's cool.
Yeah. Yep.
But I think John Nelson probably owns one of the coolest Rangers ever built. And I'm sorry to call you that, Nellie.
That's okay.
How dare you? Only my mother calls me John.
Yeah. Even she's starting to call me Nellie now.
Really?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, she still calls me John.
But that single console DP doesn't sell anymore. They don't make them anymore.
No.
You can't even get them.
No, they tried revamping it in the form of the 618 side console. It was supposed to be kind of the takeover, or the newest listing of what the 690 were. But I don't, to build that boat and put modern wiring and switches and all that kind of stuff in there, I don't know that you'd get 70,000 for it, which you'd need to, because that's what people are.
And that's the unfortunate thing with like a Ranger. People think they're buying one. They ain't buying one no more.
Yeah, and a 18, the boat's 18.9. People don't want a sub 20-foot boat anymore. Very few people do. They want it as close to 20 feet or a little bit over as possible.
They're paying that kind of money. But and that's the thing, is like the thing that boat companies make the least amount of money on is 18.5-foot boat. And it's more of a market share thing. That's what I've learned, is it's more about getting people into their brand now. And that's the only reason I think a lot of these boat companies are still even making boats that size.
Right.
But I think Ranger was the first to really emphasize longevity components, and it's the first to really prove the point of paying $7,000 more because you're going to get 10 more on the back end. So are you paying 7 more?
Yeah.
No.
Yep.
No, you're actually paying less over the long haul, right? It's kind of like getting a nice pair of boots versus a less nice pair.
Yeah.
Sure, these cost you $50, but they only last you 1 year. These cost $100 and last 5.
Or they might last you 5 years, but they're not very comfortable to deal with.
Right
Away. So.
And I think the boat industry right now, boats it's the opposite of cars. Cars were probably built the most rugged and in the 50s, right? And boats are kind of they're probably built the best today, but it's amazing how a company's philosophy shapes that, I guess. And I guess the Vexus Ranger, that DNA is a really special group of guys. And you got to kind of see that come up and be a part of that. And that's super cool, man.
Yeah. It was interesting to see that explosion or that growth.
Yeah.
My first new Ranger was 99. And then for a few weeks, I had the 620 tiller. I had 00001 off the assembly line.
Cool.
And I ran that for a couple of weeks and took it out to Lake Erie for a tournament. But they weren't satisfied the way, I think that boat got chopped up. They weren't satisfied with the way everything went together on it. So I was supposed to have serial number 1, but I ended up with serial number 4 on the 620.
Wow.
So, but it was
Can't chop it up. They got to put that in a museum.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows what they've done with it now? But it was, it's fun to see that growth of that company, and there's some that are still doing that, but I knew I had the sickness in 99 when I went $20,000 for a new boat motor trailer. That's not so bad. Whereas in 1990 I bought a Crestliner, or 91 I bought a brand new Crestliner, and I think I was under 10,000 boat motor trailer.
Oh wow.
With a 70 horse Yamaha tiller on it. And 10 years later, it was 20 grand.
Yeah.
Boat motor trailer.
Yeah.
But I got to pick all the colors. Greg actually showed up one day, went to Brainerd one day, came home with a used Ranger. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he borrowed me that boat for a tournament out of the Red Door off the north end of Mille Lacs. It's big south wind coming in, and we're all bobbing around waiting for a number to go. And it's like, all right, boat whatever, it's time to go. And I go, whoop, and it went like this and absolutely crushed the wave that I landed on. And I went, I'm buying one of these immediately. It was so solid. Yeah.
Moment.
And his was a 96, I think. 96 690 tiller. And then I bought a 99. The next spring I bought a 99 and went,
Because were you in it when Ranger wasn't the shit and then they were? Or were they always kind of the shit
then
they made your style of boat?
Yeah, they had the 690 tillers and 680 tillers and that stuff out there. And they were bass boats. And then the 690 side console, and then all of a sudden, starting in 98 or 99, the 620 dual console came out, and everybody went, ooh, a walleye boat with a 225 on it. That rides smooth and dry and goes 57 miles an hour. I want one of those.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and people just bought the snot out of them.
Well, I was right in line with the .com boom and...
Yeah.
Kind of, I guess. But there's maybe some people making good... I've noticed that. There's a champagne taste with that Ranger, and you've got a lot of people that'll buy one that fish 2 weekends out of the year.
Or Vexus, or Skeeter, or
that.
any of the, the trackers, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of people that just want the newest, coolest, biggest thing.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, like you said, they might fish a half a dozen days a year.
Right.
They might go on one Canadian adventure, walleye or muskie or smallmouth or whatever.
Right.
So, yeah, it's, I don't know. People do what they want to do with their money.
Well, just the amount of tackle you have to choose from now. You go into Thorne Brothers now, and you've got, a whole section of Japanese exclusive imported stuff. You've got, the amount of lures that you have now to throw and for you to keep track of is got to be a lot bigger than it used to be, but yet technology might help you manage it better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Versus
it's easier.
You used to have to do all that on paper.
Yeah, I do
managing inventory on paper. How fun does that sound?
A dot matrix printout sheet of what we sold every day. if a UPC got hand entered into it, That's what Thorne Brothers started out when I was first.
Enter all the numbers.
Yep. Yep.
Oh.
We started to make up our own rather than the UPC that was on the back there because they didn't have enough money to buy scanners. And then you'd have to go through and put all that information in there. And they thought, well, that's not going to be that big of a deal. And then eventually it's like, no, we need factory UPCs so the customer can find it on the internet and see that we're 3.6 miles away and we have that in stock.
That is an interesting thing.
Yep.
Scanners, I bought one. It's $25.
Oh, now,
right? But it's like, boats don't work that way.
What do you mean?
Boats are more like, boats through time are more money.
Yeah.
TVs through time are less money. Same with computers, same with scanners. And why is that?
Physical cost of the materials, warranty, life expectancy of the product.
But what about the result it provides? It provides so much more efficiency, for example, right? And typically, when you're saving time, people pay more to save time until competition comes in and says, I can do it for this. That's what I think is the main thing. If there was only one guy making scanners, they wouldn't become less expensive.
Right.
We'd be paying thousands for a scanner.
Technology in electronics, whether it's cameras or cell phones or computers, it's probably not this way anymore. But through the 90s, it was every 18 months or so, it got twice as fast and half as size.
Yep.
Well, now can't quite say that, but the amount of things that you can make smaller and faster, you can't make fiberglass cheaper. You can't make copper wiring cheaper. That you might be able to make the switches more cost effective, for the
Use
manufacturer,
plastic
that
latches
kind of
instead of stainless.
That kind of stuff. But and boats are a lot bigger. People want to spend money on them.
Well, I think boats are deceiving. Until you've I didn't realize it till I sold them. I didn't know how to look at a boat and understand what I was looking at. But if you look at boats long enough, it's just like you said. How much money is being spent on parts and what kind of parts and components are being put in this boat, and then that attention to detail putting them in, right? But it's holy smokes, there's differences there. But it's to a guy walking into a showroom, that one's $7,000 more. But if you don't have somebody to point that stuff out to him, that boat's just $7,000 more. Why would I buy it?
Yep.
Oh, I like it better. That's 1 out of 10 people.
Yep. And warranties,
big deal.
Warranty is a big deal. How many catalogs do they hand out? How many full? I don't know if Ranger still does it, but they used to print out that tremendous color glossy catalog, and how many of those would they hand out? Thousands just at boat shows in Minnesota, because everybody, whether you were going to buy a new boat or not, you'd go pick up you'd pick up the Ranger catalog and the Skeeter catalog and the Lund catalog, and you'd have them all there. Well, now you have a website, you can go through and scan it. I remember the first time that you could go through and do your color layout on your boat on your computer. We want apple cinnamon mist for the pinstripes. We want mica for the hull. We want a white running surface. We want a white interior. We want this, and this, and it would go. And that's what it's going to look like.
Dude,
or pretty close.
It used to be, where you fished was the most important thing. It seemed like nothing mattered more. And now it's changed, man, and it's almost like the where you fish technology is I don't know how it could get better.
Right.
So it's all about making them bite, and that's, I think, what's interesting about owning a tackle shop now. And you've seen it with certain baits or certain trends where it's just they're gone, and it's it's all about making them bite now. There's no secrets on where bass live or where you can find them, or it's all about making them bite. And you've seen that. I mean, the Japanese thing is like hot right now, and I'm convinced that's why, right? But do you remember like the first Japanese stuff? You talked about the Daiwa guys, right? Like those guys have always been pushing the envelope a little bit and coming out with some of that newest stuff. And I would say the muskie community is similar in like a garage tinkering kind of way.
Yeah, oh, definitely.
And it's amazing. Like, people don't even think the drop shot is that's an American technique as far as we're concerned. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting just how, if you look back, like that change has gone like this, and I just wonder.
That's got to be. That has to be, like anything, due to the ability to share information over long distances. You know.
Totally.
You know, I still think it's very important to fish with different people and new people and learn things that way. But if you're savvy on the internet and you understand the basics of fishing, you don't have to fish with anybody to show you how to do stuff anymore.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah.
You can learn anything you want.
Yep.
Watching YouTube.
Yep.
I could fish with Nellie. Not really, but I could at least, if you were to live stream a day of fishing, I could do that. And you never had that kind of information at your fingertips. You had to wait a month for the next Bassmaster and fisherman to come out, and you get 5 new little blurps, and 3 of them would maybe be applicable or whatever. So
you had to fish. You had to fish with different people if you wanted to expand your learning curve, if you wanted to straighten that curve out at all. Otherwise, it was a lot of work.
You scoping ass kids have no clue how easy you have it. You better be catching them. I'm just kidding.
If we had the same opportunities, we'd do the same things.
You're dang right, man. It's like getting mad at somebody for being born in a certain like sure, you can get mad at your dad for how they handled that parenting situation, but we do kind of put a lot of fault on that kid or whatever, and it's like, you can't tell me you wouldn't do the same thing in his shoes.
Yep.
Oh no, I would. No, you would.
Yeah.
So well, Nellie, I should probably get home. We're almost there to the point where
I was gonna say, you're almost there. You're still an hour and 40 minutes from home.
No, just probably should get home so I can wake up and send emails in the morning. But you're an early riser, and you should probably go to bed, dude. Eventually.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna give people a look, flashback into time one more time. The wide angle lens probably won't pick this picture up good enough, but Nellie, I just want to give you your stripes, man. You're a legend to me. You're a legend in my book, and I guess I appreciate this because I think, I record a lot of podcasts, but some of my favorite to record are with people like you, people like Paul and Dean, and just talking about the history, because I really think that it's lost in time a little bit.
It'll get that way.
It will. It's already. Kids don't know who Jim Moyna is.
Yeah, we not that I'm saying I was important to the industry, but the people that went from no GPS to fully functional GPS mapping in every unit sold, and live scope and lithium batteries and fuel injected motors and 4-strokes and all of that stuff. There was it's like my parents going from no TV to black and white TV to color TV, microwaves,
typewriter
typewriter to Smith Corona word processor to an Apple computer, in the office, to an Apple computer at every desk, or a Microsoft or whatever. That's, my mom's 91. You think about what she's seen change.
Yeah. And we look at old people as some of the most stubborn people.
Oh, she is.
But no, she just had enough adapting. Like, it's like she's had 60 years of adapting. At
Yeah.
60, whatever, she's like,
Yeah.
I feel like I've adapted. And like,
Yeah.
you're one of the most adaptable human beings on planet Earth. You don't know it because it's all changed past your point of wanting to adapt.
Right.
But
Yeah.
if you look at how much you've adapted
yeah.
more than any of these adaptable kids, if you
Yeah.
will, right?
Yeah.
But so I think, and that's like, you know, Seth Feider, if he's like, I'm not good at scoping. Bullshit. You're
Yeah.
great at scoping. You just don't think you are. And you're great with technology. We watched you 2D boulders on
Yeah.
Mille Lacs
Yeah.
better than everybody. Like, you are good at adapting to
Yeah.
technology. It's just, I think you get caught in your recipe of success that got you to where you're at. And it's hard to kick that, right? It's like, not everybody got a smartphone right away.
It's kind of like I was saying earlier, if you're questioning yourself or if you're wondering, am I doing the right thing? That's cool that you're, Seth saying, I'm not very good at this, but he's going to do it. He's going to keep doing it. So, you're using your brain more so than, oh, I have this. I already know everything about it. So it's, if you're struggling with something or questioning, are you doing the right thing or in the right way or whatever, I think that's almost more information than going, oh, I know how to do this, or I've done this before. I'm fine with it. I'm a good live scoper.
To me,
Okay.
that separates
Okay.
the best anglers from the rest is the willingness to go suck.
Oh yeah.
Like, in my mind, like, there's two different types of fishermen, and the one I'm referring to is the smaller of the percentage, where there's people who are sick enough about it where I'm going to go learn this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to suck at first,
Yeah.
but I know if I spend 4 days with this, I'm going to be better for it.
Yep.
And I think there's only few people, and it, not everybody's that way with everything, but I think the people who are willing to do that are obviously
Yeah.
better off for it.
Find those techniques or the little tricks that make things happen, or the third spot down the line, fourth spot down the line, the little rubble pile that nobody else would even think to stop at.
Do Sakamata shads catch bass? No. You catch bass
Yeah.
with the Sakamata shad.
Right.
People forget that, I think, with
Yep.
lures. It's like, oh, I got this new Japanese lure. I made 5 casts and I didn't catch one. Oh, the lure, it
Yeah.
sucks. It's like,
Yeah.
well,
Might not have been in the right spot.
and I'm victim of that.
Yeah.
Like, I owned a cover scat for 4 years before I really understood the power, and I would pick it up for, I bet I picked it up 15 casts and wrote it off, Nellie.
Yep.
And now it's, that whole category is taken off. So it's,
Yep.
or a jerkbait. Throw it 4 casts and out.
Yep.
Well, they're not eating a
Yeah.
jerkbait. Well,
And
are
you,
you sure?
and you bought it in August.
Yes, yes, dude.
You bought it the 1st of August, and you finally said, I'm never throwing this again on the 5th of August.
Nellie's like,
And everybody tells you how great jerkbaits are in cold water.
Nellie's like, 3 days to learn something. Dude,
Yeah.
we used to spend months. Like,
Yeah.
months. So it's like, go learn something. Go put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to go suck. That's how tuition is paid.
Yep. And that's, falling back to Minnetonka, I would go out within days after ice out and start driving. And I'd just go to pieces of structure and I'd grid it out. And I'm on, back in the early days of the 997 Humminbird side imaging. So it was really cool, but compared to what we have now, it was nothing.
You could do that in
Yeah. But to figure those, to spend that time just not even fishing.
Yeah.
I'd bring my crappie rod along and stop and catch a few crappies in the evening, but I would spend hours. I'd spend a whole day, 10 hours, 12 hours out there just idling across stuff and going, okay, there's something interesting.
I respect
And
that.
and I still do that.
I do too.
Yep.
I do too. That, I guess, one thing that changed my fishing was me going to the lake with side imaging and not pulling a rod out. Once
Yeah.
I started, that was a huge help
Yep.
for me. So, but
Yep.
Nellie, this has been awesome time. Thanks
Yeah.
for taking me fishing today. It's been great getting to know you. And yeah, dude, I hope to see you on the Champions Tour next year.
Yeah. See what the schedule looks like and my schedule, and I'm in the 80% category. I'm going to do it again. So hopefully they don't put 3 Mille Lacs tournaments out there.
There's still a scary dog in that fight in you. I know it. I know it, dude.
Yeah.
So, and you're too good a dude to lose. You're too good a presence on that tour. So I hope I hope to see you next year. And if you need a damn roommate, if that's what it takes, I'm in. So,
All right.
thanks for tuning in, guys. This is Teal's Bass Galaxy with the legend Nellie. Checking in, checking out. But don't forget to check out Thorne Brothers' website today, thornbros.com. Check out their JDM selection, American Tackle selection. They got everything you need. Thanks.